Chapter 1784. It was as if everything they'd built up had exploded in an instant. From the outsider's sudden attack, to Yi Zichen's severe injuries and coma, to the gods, Yao, and demons rioting. In just 6 short hours, everyone, whether it was the ordinary cultivators living in the cities under their protection or the soldiers and generals who defended the country, felt an unbearable pressure. I misjudged him. The former emperor of lightning punishment, Xiao Yan, sat in a chair in the conference hall. Yi Zichen was unconscious, while Vice Alliance head Xiao Yumei and Gu Li stood by his side. Naturally, the upheaval alliance fell to Xiao Yan, who'd been placed under house arrest. This had been Xiao Yumei's idea. It had nothing to do with their blood relationship. The way she saw it, the current situation required someone familiar with the power to control it. Xiao Yan was the only one in the upheaval alliance with that kind of experience. Xiao Yan's house arrest was lifted, but the waves of news weighed down on him, making it hard for him to breathe. He looked at the endless stream of messages on his phone and muttered, "I misjudged him. I've wronged him." "What?" Xiao Yan's words made Xiao Hu look at him. They were the only ones left in the hall. The others had long since been sent out to quell the chaos. He'd wanted to go out and face the enemy, but Xiao Yan needed him to stay behind to share some of the pressure. "My brother-in-law." Xiao Yan smiled bitterly. This was the first time he'd sincerely called Yi Zichen brother-in-law. "I misjudged him for his friendship with my sister, and I misjudged him for leaving everything to me. Now I truly understand what kind of pressure he's shouldering." Xiao Yan stood in front of a mountain of letters. Some of them had already been opened, but most were sealed with spiritual power, waiting to be opened. Xiao Yan's gaze was somewhat numb. Even without opening the letters, he knew what they were about. They were all letters requesting reinforcements. As the upheaval alliance grew, the divine mountains, Yao, and sacred beasts merged with them, and the upheaval alliance became their central hub. The sudden upheaval caught both the Yao and God realms off guard. Coincidentally, all the emperors had come to the upheaval alliance to discuss business. Since they couldn't get in touch with their leaders, they could only send letters requesting reinforcements. That wasn't all. There was also the preparation group that Yi Zichen had created. After Xiao Yan seized power, he was pulled into the group. As soon as he joined, everyone in the group began to at him like crazy. When he opened the war preparations group, 9 out of 10 messages were from various factions asking for Xiao Yan's help. Xiao Hu, who was also in the group, understood Xiao Yan's intentions. He gently patted him on the shoulder without saying anything. Don't worry about me. I'm just spitting out my grievances. I know what I have to do now. Even if the pressure is great, I have to hold on until my brother-in-law wakes up." With that, Xiao Yan abruptly pushed all the letters in front of him to the ground. "There's no need to read these letters. I know the general contents. They're all asking for help. Based on the messages from the people in the group, we can deduce that." A map drawn with spiritual energy suddenly appeared in front of Xiao Yan and Xiao Hu. It was a comprehensive map of the upper 3 realms. The chaos has not only spread to the God race and the Yao race, but also to the demon race. Xiao Yan furrowed his brows and drew a circle around the demons with his divine power. From this, it can be seen that the demons are not the instigators of this internal strife. According to the messages in the chat group, the God race's rebellion had started from the central divine mountain and spread out in all directions. The Yao race's rebellion had started from within the Yao race. Coincidentally, the Outer Realm God race appeared in the Outer Realm at this time. Overall, I have to say that my brother-in-law made a mistake. The wrong decision. He sent the Imperial Lords to the Outer Realm to fend off the enemy, but he had actually fallen for the Outer Realm scheme. This can be seen from the fact that we can't contact those Imperial Lords. They must have fallen into a trap set by the Outer Realms and are unable to contact us. But you can't blame Alliance Master Yi. When he made this decision, the epoch hadn't yet, Xiao Hu said. Xiao Yin nodded in response. Of course I know that. All of this can only be blamed on my brother-in-law's understanding of the outer realm. He knew very well that if the outer realm god race were to invade, we would have no chance at all. That's why he made such a desperate decision. I have no intention of slandering him. I only want to say that the god race coincidentally captured him as well. This kind of psychology. The reason we're in this situation is because both sides know each other too well. My brother-in-law lost because he didn't understand the outer realm god race as well as the outer realm god race understood him. The gods, Yao, and demons are rioting at the same time. It's obvious that the outer realm god race set this trap long ago. My brother-in-law didn't know this information, so it's understandable that he made such a decision. What I need to do now is think. If my brother-in-law were here, how would he reverse this stalemate? This isn't a stalemate. It's a dangerous situation, said Xiao Hu. It really was a dangerous situation. In just 6 short hours, more than 30 of the 8 divine mountains had fallen. This meant that nearly half of the god race's territory had fallen. Among the Yao, only the holy ones were holding out bitterly. More than 80% of the other races had fallen. The survivors could only draw close to the holy ones and fight back. The Upheaval Alliance's divine mountain was in the best situation. It was located behind the northern divine mountain. In other words, if they wanted to attack here, they'd have to conquer the northern divine mountain first. However, if things continued as they were, without Shui Yang, the Sea Emperor, there was no telling how long the northern divine mountain would be able to hold out. Nobody knew. What exactly do we do? Xiao Yin sat there, scowling miserably. His brows were deeply furrowed. All he could think of right now was to fight to stop the war. He'd sent out everyone he could. Haven't the intelligence agents we sent to the central divine mountain returned yet? Xiao Yin had been in Chaos City this entire time. Previously, he'd been in seclusion, but ever since he left, he'd been keeping watch. He didn't know anything about the outside world, but through a series of reports, he knew that the central divine mountain situation was the crux of the problem. He needed to know the central divine mountain situation. Only then could he better understand everything. What? Reporting. Before Xiao Hu could finish his sentence, a bloodied man suddenly appeared outside the hall. He'd lost an arm, and his abdomen and chest were riddled with terrifying wounds. His injuries were grievous, but that didn't affect his fierce gaze in the slightest. He strode over to Xiao Yin. You are. Tell Brother Yi that the central divine mountains Zhou Wu transcended. The bloodied man stood stiffly in the hall, ignoring the blood dripping from his body. His gaze was fierce. He's already colluded with the outsiders. They're the ones who helped him transcend. Also, Kuei Lin of the demon race has been resurrected. The two of them have already met up. I suspect they'll be here soon. Tell Brother Yi to hurry. Cough. Suddenly, the bloodied man coughed up a mouthful of heart's blood. He swallowed the words he'd been about to say. As Xiao Yin and Xiao Hu watched, the fierce-looking man transformed into a bloody dog and fell to the ground. Chapter 1785. The Northern Divine Mountain. As the only way to reach Yi Zichen's Divine Mountain, Yin Shang and Go Yuzhan headed to the Northern Divine Mountain to fend off the enemy. In truth, Su Lu had been there as well, but when she heard the 9-tailed foxes had been injured, she'd rushed over an hour ago. As for Su Yun, one of the 4 auxiliary stars, he always appeared and disappeared mysteriously. The two of them didn't expect him to show up. Yin Shang? Doesn't that sound familiar? Familiar? The impure earth reincarnation. You've been in the modern realm before, haven't you? Don't you think these guys are impure earth reincarnations? After forcing back hundreds of reincarnated experts with his staff, Go Yuzhan glared at Yin Shang and panted. To tell you the truth, I've been too tired lately. I really want to rest. Rest? Who doesn't want to rest? It's just that this isn't the time for us to rest. Yin Shang's gaze was resolute. If you looked closely, you'd see his hand trembling as he gripped his sword. Even if they were experts at the Imperial Monarch realm, those reincarnators who didn't know pain and fought like Suicide Squad members were far inferior to them in terms of cultivation. Reincarnated experts could push them back with a wave of their hands, but even so, their strength would be depleted. Everyone needed information. Yin Shang wanted it too. But before the chaos of war ended, before the Emperor's star awoke, as the auxiliary stars, they had to stand at the forefront and buy time for the Emperor's star. He couldn't retreat. In response, Go Yuzhan shrugged resentfully. In truth, he'd only said that out of spite. However, he'd forgotten that Yin Shang was a stubborn loyalist. Especially after inheriting the will of the auxiliary stars, he'd become even more stubborn. Yin Shang's insistence left Go Yuzhan speechless. All he could do was sigh silently, raise his staff, and charge forward. At that moment, boom! A deafening boom reverberated throughout the entire northern Divine Mountain. Go Yuzhan suddenly stopped in his tracks, staff in hand. Something's wrong. From the start of the chaos, the explosions had been endless. However, this one was completely different. Go Yuzhan's sharp senses instantly sensed that something was amiss. When he looked in Yin Shang's direction, he realized that Yin Shang had long since looked in that direction. Let's go take a look. Not long after, Yin Shang waved the sword in his hand and released a sword chi. He sliced the enemies around him in half and ran towards the source of the explosion. Go Yuzhan followed closely behind, but before he could even run 1,000 meters, a heavy pressure suddenly came from the front. Yin Shang. Go Yuzhan's staff was firmly planted in front of him. He found it difficult to breathe under this spiritual pressure. The veins in his arm were about to burst, and a faint mist of blood appeared on his arm. At Go Yuzhan's call, Yin Shang turned around and their eyes met. Although the two of them did not say anything, they seemed to have reached a consensus in their hearts. Retreat. They didn't run towards the source of life, but ran in the opposite direction without any hesitation. In the short span of 10 seconds, they hurried to the border of the northern Divine Mountain. If they retreated further, they would reach the 10th Divine Mountain where Chaos City was located. Yin Shang, do you feel it? Go Yuzhan's eyes were filled with fear. His eyes flickered as he looked in front of him. His face was filled with confusion and helplessness. The spiritual pressure just now was like a nightmare with its bloody mouth wide open. Their instincts were screaming at them that they couldn't take even half a step forward. If they did, they would die. It was this instinct that made them retreat without any hesitation. Of course I feel it. Yin Shang's eyes flickered with fear as he panted heavily. However, before Go Yuzhan could say anything else, it's here again. The spiritual pressure came crashing down again. Go Yuzhan immediately wanted to retreat, but he heard Yin Shang shout angrily. You're not allowed to retreat. This shout made Go Yuzhan's body come to an abrupt halt. He struggled to turn around and meet up with Yin Shang. The two of them worked together to resist the spiritual pressure. I didn't expect there to be someone alive. Someone murmured in the sky. Go Yuzhan and Yin Shang looked up at the same time. Zhou Wu. The person standing in the sky was none other than God Emperor Zhou Wu. When he heard their shouts, he looked in their direction. It's you too. Zhou Wu naturally remembered Go Yuzhan and Yin Shang. Everything that had happened outside the Transcendence Tomb was still fresh in his mind. The 4 auxiliary stars had worked together to beat him until he had to flee in panic. It was also those 4 auxiliary stars that had nearly destroyed his dreams of transcendence. How could he forget such memories? What a coincidence! I really wanted to look for you too, but you delivered yourselves to my doorstep. Why is it just the 2 of you? Where are the other 2 auxiliary stars? You've transcended. Yin Shang gritted his teeth. Yes, I've transcended. Zhou Wu laughed mockingly. You must be surprised that I've transcended. Are you regretting that you didn't? Forget it, it's useless even if you regret it. There's no medicine for regret in this world. Unbeknownst to them, Zhou Wu's words had hit Yin Shang's heart. They shouldn't have let him go back then. Letting him go was akin to nurturing a tiger that would invite calamity. Furthermore, this calamity had grown to a point where they couldn't even fight back. It looks like you two are protecting your Emperor's stars, aren't you? Zhou Wu chuckled and nodded approvingly. To be honest, you're already pretty good. In the entire northern Divine Mountain, you two are the only ones capable of withstanding my spiritual pressure. What do you mean? It's just as you think. The others died a long time ago. You can't really put it that way. They're not really dead. They're just living in a different way. As soon as he finished speaking, Yin Shang and Go Yuzhan saw a dense mass of people marching towards them. They recognized quite a few of these people. They were all former elders and retainers of the Shui family. Not long ago they'd fought together against enemies, but now they'd all become corpses. Gulp. Go Yuzhan couldn't help but gulp when he saw this. The arm that was holding the rod began to tremble uncontrollably, and the fear in his eyes was magnified at this moment. He'd practically lost the ability to think. His legs trembled, and there was only one thought in his head. Run. He hurtled backwards, but a blur suddenly appeared in front of him. Go Yuzhan immediately stopped in his tracks. Only when he stopped did he see a silver longsword pointed at his throat. His throat was only a millimeter away from the tip of the sword. The sharpness of the blade forced him to take 2 steps back. Yin Shang. What are you trying to do? Yin Shang pointed his sword at Go Yuzhan. You were trying to run just now, weren't you? Why wouldn't I run? Zhou Wu has transcended. How could we possibly be his match? And those impure reincarnated bastards, can't you see? They could beat us to death with just their fists. So what? Chapter 1786. The Meaning of Existence. A thunderous roar exploded in Go Yuzhanjian's ears. Go Yuzhanjian's lips quivered, but he couldn't say another word. Minister of the Right. Among the Emperor's stars, 4 great auxiliary stars, the right minister was in charge of external affairs, while the left minister was in charge of internal affairs. Go Yuzhan had inherited the will of the auxiliary star, the right minister star. The right minister star had belonged to the war star in the first place, and it had given him unparalleled power. He'd attained the imperial monarch realm in the shortest amount of time possible, and his cultivation hadn't stagnated after his breakthrough. Gradually, he was able to stand shoulder to shoulder with emperors, and even great sages. Such transcendent power was something that no one could be envious of. It was just that he could not feel happy about it. This was because when he received the inheritance, he also received the will of the previous auxiliary star. The existence of their auxiliary stars was for the sake of the Emperor's star. In other words, they didn't live for themselves, but for the Emperor's star. As long as the imperial star needed it, they would not hesitate to die. Go Yuzhan, who had memories of the current world, felt that this was unfair. They were all humans, so why did he have to live for others? Why did he have to die for the sake of the imperial star? How laughable! Until now, he was still resisting this kind of will. He even sneered at the foolishly loyal Yin Shang. He only wanted to live for himself. Of course, he could fulfill his responsibilities as the Minister of the Right, just like back in the outside, when Yi Zichen needed him to face his enemies. Now that Yi Zichen was heavily injured and unconscious, he could help Yi Zichen fend off his enemies and buy him time to wake up. However, all of this was built on the foundation that he could survive. Now Zhou Wu was aloof and transcendent. Unfettered by the rules, he could summon clouds and rain with a flip of his hand. He could destroy a divine mountain with just his spiritual pressure without even using any spiritual technique. He could even make the dead become his subordinates to conquer the world. Who could tell him how such a person could win? His subconscious was telling him that Zhou Wu was a dangerous person. His danger index was top-notch. His judgment told him that his chances of surviving a fight with Zhou Wu were less than 1 in 10,000. His instincts were telling him to run and not look back. Everything he had was telling him the same thing. Why couldn't he follow his instincts? Because they lived for the Imperial Star. To hell with the *T Emperor Star, to hell with the meaning of existence. All Goyu was thinking was, I don't want to die. I haven't lived enough. I can't beat that bastard Zhou Wu. Yinshang may be foolishly loyal, but I am not foolishly loyal. If you want to stay here and die, then stay. I don't want to play with you anymore. What *T Minister of the Right, I don't want it anymore. What Emperor Star, Auxiliary Star, World Peace. I'm not playing this game anymore. In his heart, he kept shouting like this. But however, he was unable to take another step towards the 10th Divine Mountain. Now you're afraid. You want to run, but where can you run to? You ran back to the Divine Mountain and obtained a short period of relaxation. But when Zhou Wu stepped into the Divine Mountain, where did you run to? The Outer Realms? Don't forget that the Outer Realms are also filled with enemies that want to destroy us. Yinshang moved his sword away from Goyuzhan's neck as he spoke. The sword returned to its scabbard and immediately retreated a few steps to the side. If you still want to leave, then leave now. Don't stay here and get in my way. I won't stop you. No matter what happens to Zhou Wu, even if I die, I will die outside the Divine Mountain. With a cold smile, Yinshang turned his head and looked at Zhou Wu. If you want to go, you'll have to do it over my dead body. Rumble. Suddenly, a pitch-black vortex appeared in the air above Yinshang's head. The vortex sucked in the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. Gradually, dots of starlight appeared above his head, perpendicular to the vortex. The starlight was dazzling. Yinshang closed his eyes indifferently, then opened them again. In an instant, a deep blue astrolabe appeared in his eyes. In the blink of an eye, the starlight from the vortex poured down. A pillar of starlight as thick as a grown man's arms wrapped around his head poured into his entire body. Dazzling starlight swirled around him. As the starlight surged, it transformed into a blue robe, trousers, and boots. On his head was the crown of a scholar, and in his right hand was a long order. The official uniform of the Star Dynasty. Up in the sky, Zhou Wu seemed to have found a toy that fascinated him. His eyes sparkled with excitement. On the path of transcendence, Zhou Wu had tried countless paths. His understanding of the stars was the most profound. The human clan, the Yao clan, the demon clan, and the tens of thousands of races in the world were divided into monarchs and monarchs. It was the same for the stars. The Emperor Star was the monarch of the stars, and the auxiliary stars in the center were the officials of the court. Their positions were also divided according to their distance from the Emperor Star. After them were the stars, which represented the people of the dynasty. The falling stars could use starlight to strengthen their realm, and the highest realm of starlight was to create starlight clothes. The Emperor's Star was the Emperor's robe, the stars were plain clothes, and the auxiliary stars were the officials. Zhou Wu had never imagined that someone could use starlight to such a level. He didn't expect he could see it. The official uniform of the Star Dynasty, and a whole set. Zhou Wu excitedly looked at Yinshang from head to toe. When the starlight clothes gathered on his body, the starlight in the sky dissipated. Not only that, but the minister of the left had also disappeared. Being able to create a starlight clothes meant that the condenser had condensed the entire star within his body. At this moment, he was no longer the falling stars, but a real star. Condensing a body into a star. From ancient times until now, there has never been a true star that has fallen. If I kill you, then I will be the first person to truly erase a star. Zhou Wu laughed wantonly, and the spiritual pressure he released grew stronger as he laughed. With the starlight clothes, Yinshang was no longer as difficult to resist as before. The token in his hand flew out, and the starlight it released condensed into a starlight barrier in front of him, protecting him. Even now, Go Yuzhan still hadn't made a move. He didn't use the power of the stars, nor did he use his own spiritual power. He just stood there in a daze, neither defending himself nor retreating. The minister of the left is in charge of internal affairs, while the minister of the right is in charge of external affairs. After obtaining the approval of the minister of the right, your realm has advanced by leaps and bounds to the emperor realm. But you and I both know that this isn't the minister of the right's true realm. You've always been resisting him, never accepting him. If you could truly accept the minister of the right's star intent. Chapter 1787. A jade-green godhead spun above Su Yan's head, radiating light that bathed the entire room in a jade-green veil. Life. Awaken. Pure life force flowed from Su Yan's body, and she gently patted Yi Zichen's chest. Instantly, the unconscious Yi Zichen was enveloped in pure life force, which flowed through his pores and into his limbs. By now, Yi Zichen had been unconscious for nearly 2 hours. As soon as he'd fainted, Su Yan had been using her pure life force to keep him alive. However, no matter how hard she tried, Yi Zichen showed no signs of recovering. His life force continued to drain away. How could this be? Xiao Yumei bit her lip and clenched her fists so tightly that her knuckles turned white. Everything had happened too suddenly. Just a few hours ago, Yi Zichen had returned from the outside with grave injuries. Although Su Yan hadn't fully healed him, at least he no longer showed any signs of dying. Even with Xiao Yumei's support, he could still walk upright. Ever since Yi Zichen fainted, his life force had been like sand that couldn't be grasped. In just a few short hours, his life force had reached the end of its tether. And that was with Su Yan's life force supporting him. If she hadn't, he might already be. Su Yan's face was drenched in sweat. Bean-sized beads of sweat rolled down her delicate chin and onto the floor, leaving a trail of sweat on the floor. Lil Yan, how about you rest for a bit? She was naturally worried about Yi Zichen, but she couldn't be so selfish as to let Su Yan use up her godhead's power. I can still hold on. Su Yan's expression was stubborn. Her hands were already starting to tremble, but she still didn't leave Yi Zichen's chest. Awaken. He couldn't even remember how many times Su Yan had used Life Awaken. This sort of divine technique was a type of area of effect skill. Once activated, it could revitalize the life force of everyone within range. The power of a single use was more than 100 times greater. It wasn't an exaggeration to say that even someone on their last breath would be reborn after Life Awaken. Yet, when it landed on Yi Zichen, he received no response whatsoever. Awaken! Su Yan shouted, then slapped Yi Zichen's forehead. Suddenly, her eyes flustered. She realized that the life force she'd poured into Yi Zichen's body couldn't keep up. The Hermit Emperor still hasn't made contact? Su Yan bit her lip and started to cry. Xiao Yumei looked at the Hermit Emperor's chat window on her phone. She'd lost count of how many messages she'd sent him over the past few hours. Regardless of whether it was voice or video chat, she'd bounced back countless times. However, the Hermit Emperor still hadn't replied. The Hermit Emperor, when she first couldn't get in touch with the Hermit Emperor, she contacted the Northern Divine Mountain and the Hermit Palace. Unfortunately, the Hermit Emperor wasn't around. The chaos had also prevented the people in the group from talking too much to her. She had no way of knowing the Hermit Emperor's location, and she had no way of going out to look for him. No! At that moment, Su Yan, who was infusing Yi Zichen with her life force, cried out involuntarily. There was a faint stench in the room, which was coming from Yi Zichen's body. Not only that, but his hair had also turned yellow, and his armpits were sweating profusely. This was the 5 signs of decay. The 5 signs of decay. Why aren't you guys behaving a little better? Su Yan's tears overflowed. She could clearly sense that Yi Zichen's spiritual power, divine power, and star power were all fighting for control. The three types of power clashed inside him, turning him into a complete mess. If this continued, Yi Zichen really would die. Starlight surged. Yin Shang didn't try to dissuade Go Yuzhan any longer. Everyone had their own ambitions. Since Go Yuzhan had chosen to flee, then so be it. No matter what the Minister of the Right decided, as the Minister of the Left, he absolutely couldn't take even half a step back. That's what he thought, and that's exactly what he did. Puny officials of the Star Dynasty dare to compete with me? Up in the sky, Zhou Wu laughed wantonly. Kuei Lin and the others watched from afar. This was Zhou Wu's request. He'd never seen anyone condense star robes before. He had to personally experience the joy Yin Shang brought him. The sky above the divine mountains had long since been destroyed. Zhou Wu swung his fist. The void was as fragile as a layer of white paper, and a horrifying hole was torn open by this piercingly cold fist wind. Yin Shang staggered to his feet. By now, he'd already exchanged hundreds of blows with Zhou Wu. The star compass in his eyes was dim, and his star robes were so tattered that they were on the verge of disappearing. However, to his despair, he hadn't left even the slightest mark on Zhou Wu's body. Furthermore, he could sense that Zhou Wu hadn't even used his full strength. He was just playing, toying with him. Boom! The fist slammed into Yin Shang's head, forcing him back a full 1,000 meters. Just as he was about to reach the 10th divine mountain, he came to a sudden stop. Crimson blood dripped from the top of his head, blurring his vision. He pushed against the air and tried to climb to his feet. He no longer had the strength to get up. Do you feel a little regretful now? In truth, you should have run away with that guy. That way, you'd be able to live a little longer. Once I've dealt with Yi Zichen's Emperor Star, I might spare your life out of consideration for your ability to condense a star robe. You can stay by my side, laughed Zhou Wu. Ha! Yin Shang snorted coldly. It was hard to tell if he felt disdain or if he didn't have the strength to speak. Zhou Wu wasn't angry at all. He had an absolute chance of victory, so he wasn't angry at all. You should know that I'm this era's only transcendent. Stay by my side. That's where your nirvana stars belong. There's something I'm curious about. How could a star robe's power be so low? It seems you're a civil official, right? Of the 4 auxiliary stars, are you the literati star or the minister of the left? Ha! What a tough nut to crack! Zhou Wu shook his head and sighed. Unfortunately, you're standing in my way. No matter what, I'm going to get rid of Yi Zichen. Even if I cherish talent, you can only die for standing in my way. If only you'd just run away. Are you sure you don't want to tell me what star you are? Yin Shang responded with a mocking smile. He raised his head and looked at Zhou Wu, who was in the sky, disdainfully. The Emperor's star will avenge me. Chapter 1788. Biting winds howled through the air above the northern divine mountain. Yin Shang's eyes were still filled with disdain, even though he knew it wouldn't be long before he and the Minister of the Left disappeared forever. There was nothing to be afraid of. Death was inevitable. It could be as light as a feather or as heavy as Mount Tai. He didn't dare say his death was as heavy as Mount Tai, but at least he'd followed his heart. Even if he died, even if he met the former Minister of the Left and the Master of the Stars, he could still face them with a clear conscience. He didn't know if the Emperor's star could really avenge him. He didn't know if this era would be destroyed or preserved in the future. But right now, he had a clear conscience. Foolish loyalty. Truly foolish loyalty. A wise man submits to circumstances. I am the chosen one. I am the true transcendence of this era. You, a mere assistant star, don't know how to read the situation. Since you're so eager to die, I'll fulfill your wish. However, I won't be the one to kill you. Suddenly, a large number of reincarnators appeared in Yin Shang's field of vision. I won't let you die so easily. After you die, I'll resurrect you and let your Emperor's star watch you become my subordinate. I'll even let you personally kill the Emperor Star you've always been loyal to. I'm sure it'll feel pretty good. Yin Shang's pupils constricted violently. He wasn't afraid of death. For the Emperor Star, for the era, he was willing to die. Even if there were still people he loved in the world, he'd still disregard his own safety for the common people. But to resurrect him after death, to turn him into an executioner of slaughter, no, he couldn't let himself become like that. Self-destruct. At this thought, Yin Shang immediately gathered the power of the stars in his body. To his despair, he couldn't even muster the power needed to self-destruct. The reincarnators drew closer and closer, baring their sharp fangs and bloodshot eyes. In their eyes, Yin Shang was their prey. You want to touch my brother? You've asked me first. The shadows of the staff that filled the sky descended with a loud rumble. The reincarnators within 100 meters of Yin Shang were all turned into dust after the shadows of the staff descended. Immediately after, Yin Shang felt the power of the stars surging into his body. You're really something. You're clearly a civil official, yet you like to show off. Have you forgotten how you died in the last era? The voice was both familiar and strange. Yin Shang raised his head in despair, and saw a man standing in front of him with his back facing him. The man could not be considered burly, but his aura was indomitable. Blue armor was draped over his body. His helmet and boots covered him from head to toe. There was not a single weak spot on him. However, at the top of the helmet, there was a tuft of hair sticking straight up. I'm afraid of you. I've never been called so unbearable in my entire life. The man with the ahog turned around and grinned. He extended his arm toward Yin Shang. Do you want me to give you a hand? Yin Shang nodded heavily and put his hand on it. The armored man pulled him up forcefully. Yin Shang furrowed his brows and said, Don't worry. You too, it's a star robe. I've been able to form it for a long time. It's just that whenever I use it, there's someone in my head who's trying to brainwash me. I can't be bothered to use it, but no matter what, you're still my brother. The left minister and the right minister have always lived and died together, even if our political views are always at odds. The man smiled calmly and suddenly turned around. Moreover, I want to be the great hero in Luli's heart. How can I miss such a good opportunity? As soon as he finished speaking, the man's gaze turned as sharp as a knife. He raised the staff in his hand and pointed it at the insufferably arrogant Zhou Wu. Brat, you're too vicious. You know that my brother is foolishly loyal, yet you still want him to kill the Emperor Star. You're killing his heart. Doing this is worse than cutting him up alive. I didn't want to get involved at first, but now I can't bear to watch any longer. I'm the right minister, a general who's always victorious in the Star Empire. Go Yuzhan smiled arrogantly. He looked at Zhou Wu with disdain. You seemed pretty arrogant before, but let me tell you now. The mountain behind us is covered by the Star Empire. Don't even think about taking half a step into this place. Look at my brother. Look at how you've beaten him up. TSK. So what if you're bullying a civil official? Why don't you spar with me, a general? You're the right minister. Zhou Wu raised his brows. I'm the real deal. Are you blind? Can't you see the awe-inspiring helmet, armor, and boots I'm wearing? I remember that you ran away in fear. Why are you back? Ran away? That's because I couldn't be bothered with you. I thought that I'd be bullying you if I attacked. But I didn't expect that my brother, a civil official, would be so troublesome to deal with you. I have no choice but to do it myself. Go Yuzhan's tone was filled with disdain as he raised his brows. My mission has always been to maintain world peace. You brat, you've been too arrogant just because you're a transcendent. As the envoy of peace, I need to give you a good lesson and teach you how to be a good boy. How about it? Want to exchange a few blows with me? All right. Up in the sky, Zhou Wu nodded indifferently. Go Yuzhan's expression immediately changed. Why isn't this grandson scared? I've already put on my astral robe. Is there something wrong with his head? You're the one with a bad brain. He's a transcendent. How could he be scared off with just a few words? Do you think he's an idiot? Yin Shang glared at Go Yuzhan speechlessly. At least this grandson has some gut. Even my awe-inspiring general aura wasn't enough to scare him off. Go Yuzhan bit his head and sighed. He glanced at Yin Shang. How annoying. In the end, I still have to fight alongside you. How about it? Do you have any more astral power? Do you need me to lend it to you? Do you need some? No need. Yin Shang snorted coldly. A pillar of astral radiance suddenly appeared above his head. Go Yuzhan couldn't help but raise his brows. You still have so much astral radiance after being beaten up so badly. Not bad. Hey, that's not right. Didn't you self-destruct just now? You didn't trick me on purpose, did you? It's really scary to think about it. You. Cut the crap. Yin Shang glared at him. Go Yuzhan put away his joking smile and said seriously, I didn't expect the two of us to be together in the end. I can't believe that the two of us are still together in the end. Those two guys always disappear at times like this. When we're cleaning up the battlefield, they'll appear. Don't you think they're a little sly? Exactly. Yin Shang nodded. Suddenly, Yin Shang and Go Yuzhan looked into each other's eyes. There was something familiar about their gazes and the scene in front of them. They didn't exchange any words. They just looked at each other and nodded. Chapter 1789. The 5 Great Signs of Decay. For such a sign to appear meant Yi Zichen was truly at the end of his rope. Su Yan's tears streamed down her cheeks, and she begged for the 3 powers inside Yi Zichen to settle down a bit. However, the weaker Yi Zichen's life force grew, the fiercer the 3 powers within him fought over it. What do I do? What the hell do I do? Su Yan was so anxious she didn't know what to do. As she released her life force, she tried to pour her own divine power into Yi Zichen's body to help him suppress the 3 powers' rampage. Ugh! As soon as her divine power entered, Su Yan coughed up a mouthful of blood. Her release of life force was cut short. Without the help of life force, Yi Zichen's body visibly aged. Su Yan had no time to worry about her own condition. She hurriedly wrapped her life force around Yi Zichen, slowing his aging process. Your power can't suppress the powers within him. Gu Li, who'd been silent all this time, sighed. He knew exactly what Su Yan was doing. It wasn't wrong for her to think this way, but unfortunately, her divine power was far too gentle. The Godhead of life existed to bestow life upon all living beings. Divine power and divine techniques naturally focused on gentleness. Yi Zichen, spiritual power, was the power of the 5 elements. Divine power was the God of Swords' Godhead. Stellar power was the power of the Emperor's Star. Every single one of these 3 powers was the most tyrannical in one's own domain. In the face of their tyrannical powers, forget suppressing them, Su Yan couldn't even stop them for half a breath of time. Given the current situation, Gu Li was extremely anxious. He and Yi Zichen were heaven's chosen twin emperors. After Yi Zichen fell unconscious, he could clearly sense that Yi Zichen's Emperor's Star was weakening. Do you need our help? At that moment, a youthful yet deep voice echoed through the room. The 5 elements fairies. They were none other than the fairies who'd left the Transcendence Tomb with Yi Zichen. Ever since they'd arrived in Chaos City, they'd been pacing back and forth. You! Gu Li knit his brows. He knew about the 5 elemental fairies. The power inside his body is too impure. In truth, the 3 powers didn't go berserk on purpose. It's because they sensed Yi Zichen's danger and wanted to seize control and save him. However, these 3 forces were the kings of their respective domains, and none of them were willing to bow down to the other. That's why Yi Zichen's condition is gradually worsening due to the 3-way fight. The lightning fairy patted Yi Zichen's arm, then explained to Xiao Yumei and company Gu Li had considered this possibility as well. The 3 types of power within Yi Zichen's body desperately wanted to save Yi Zichen. As soon as an external force entered his body, they'd immediately erase it. That was why he hadn't rashly poured his own power into Yi Zichen. "What are you going to do?" asked Guli solemnly. "Merge into his body," the fire elemental sprite said. "Right now, he doesn't have any consciousness of his own, so he can't sort out the power in his body. The few of us can take on this role. After we enter his body, we can calm the internal chaos. After that, you were pumping life force into him. We can also help him absorb it, and his condition will naturally improve." "But you're considered an external force too," said Guli. "We naturally have our own plans for this. Our involvement will convince them that we're not an external force," said the fire elemental sprite. "The decision is up to you. If you agree, we'll carry out the plan. If you don't, then we'll have to wait another epoch." The room suddenly fell silent. Su Yan's life force continued to flow out of Yi Zichen's body. It didn't matter whether or not Su Yan's divine power would eventually run dry. Even if she kept pouring life force into him, given Yi Zichen's condition, his vital signs would disappear in 2 days at most. There were no signs. There was no news from the Hermit Emperor, and neither Guli nor Xiao Yumei had any concrete solutions. "Xiao Yumei, Su Yan, the decision is in your hands." Guli glanced at Yi Zichen's 2 confidants. "I have to tell you this, they're the only ones who transcended. Yi Zichen didn't merge with them when he was conscious. Something must have happened between them. Something must have happened. If we let them enter Yi Zichen's body, the situation might worsen." As soon as Guli said that, the elemental sprite's expressions grew unsightly. This was an opportunity they'd gone to great lengths to find. If they let Yi Zichen remain conscious, there was practically no chance of merging with him. They'd thought they could use this opportunity, yet Guli had said something like this. But Guli's tone suddenly changed. "If I had a choice, I'd choose to let them merge." "Why?" asked Xiao Yumei. "You've all seen Yi Zichen's condition. Su Yan should know better than anyone else. Even with Su Yan, he won't be able to live much longer. At a time like this, we might as well take a gamble. Even if the situation worsens, at most, a few types of energy will clash and Yi Zichen will die. That's only a possibility. It'll just shorten Yi Zichen's time on the brink of death. But if it really is as they say and we succeed..." He looked intently at the 5 elemental sprites, then hurriedly chimed in. "We can promise you that once we enter, the chaos in his body will be suppressed. Really, please believe us. Really, we're not lying to you," the water sprite also added. Xiao Yumei and Su Yan were still hesitating. The anxiety they felt was like they were in a hospital and needed a family member's signature during an operation. They were worried about the risks of the operation, but they had no other choice, so they had to sign. "Lil Yan, Guli is telling the truth. Even if I inject life force into Yi Zichen like this, if the chaos in his body isn't suppressed, he can only last 2 days at most," Su Yan said solemnly. "Then, I'm willing to believe them." Su Yan bit her lips, then looked towards the 5 elemental sprites. Xiao Yumei also tightly clenched her fists. After thinking for a while, she forcefully nodded her head. The 5 elemental sprites' faces instantly lit up. They all ran towards Yi Zichen's bed, only to be stopped by Guli. Chapter 1790. Run. If everything was really as the Bloody Man said, and the foreign realm celestials had helped God Emperor Zhou Wu successfully transcend, where could he run to? Outside, the outsiders were eyeing them like tigers watching their prey. Inside, Zhou Wu was slaughtering all living beings. How could the people of the current era escape? This thought instantly flashed through Xiao Yan's mind, but he had no time to dwell on it. As soon as the Bloody Man finished speaking, he fell to the ground. "Brother! Just who on earth was this blood-soaked Yao expert? The Yao should be in the middle of a riot. Why had he rushed here just to tell them this?" Countless questions swirled in Xiao Yan's mind. Suddenly, the Tianguo clan. He'd heard from Xiao Yumei that Yi Zichen had a close friend from the Tianguo clan. If the blood-soaked dog in front of me is Yi Zichen's best friend, Then doesn't that mean that everything it said was true? Star-Lord Yi, isn't it about time you showed yourself and met me? Suddenly, a playful chuckle came from outside the hall. Xiao Yan and Xiao, who didn't even have time to react before the entire hall rumbled and collapsed into rubble. Oh? Star-Lord Yi isn't in the hall? Are these two the only pawns you left behind? The chuckle came from the sky once more. Before long, light flickered within the rubble. Spiritual energy jolted the rubble away, and Xiao Yan and Xiao who stepped out. The two of them were not injured. Even though they were unable to leave the hall immediately, they had made an excellent response. Before the hall collapsed, Xiao who had set up a barrier around him, Xiao Yan and the Yao expert. They left the ruins and looked up into the sky. Zhou Wu. The people standing in the sky were none other than Zhou Wu, Kuei Lin, and his former subordinate. Everything was just as the Yao expert had said. Kuei Lin had come back to life. God Emperor Zhou Wu was standing in the sky above Chaos City, and the aura he emanated was. Even Gu Xuanda of the Ancients was a bit weaker than him. He could not feel the restraints of the laws around him. He stood there as if he had transcended the heavens and earth. All the signs indicated that Zhou Wu had truly transcended. I didn't expect it to be the previous thunder-punishing emperor. This emperor misspoke. The thunder-punishing emperor cannot be said to be an abandoned pawn. Thunder-punishment emperor, it's been a long time since we last met. Do you have anything to say to this emperor? Not too long ago you were still working under this emperor, but your father seized power again, and you even turned to the demons. You've really made this emperor's heart ache. Zhou Wu stood proudly in the sky, chatting with Xiao Yan as if they were talking about family matters. From the moment he appeared, the seriousness in Xiao Yan's eyes hadn't dissipated. No one would have guessed that this fellow, who didn't have a shred of Emperor's celestial fate, who'd unscrupulously usurped the 5 elements' great Emperor's celestial fate, would actually transcend. However, the right arm of the robe he was wearing was damaged, and a trace of blood could be vaguely seen. Is he injured? He had already transcended, so who else had the ability to hurt him? Ancient race? However, both Gu Xuanda and Qing Li from the ancient race had gone to the outer domain. Could it be that the ancient race's old man, Gu Shan, had taken action? Why aren't you answering me, Minister Xiao? Asked Zhou Wu. This question instantly brought Xiao Yan back to his senses. No matter who had injured him, Zhou Wu was already here. From his tone, it wasn't hard to tell that he'd come for Yi Zichen. Presumably, he didn't know about Yi Zichen's grave injuries. Since Xiao Yumei hadn't appeared yet, that meant Yi Zichen wasn't out of danger yet. What Xiao Yan needed to do now was buy as much time as possible. Congratulations, Your Imperial Majesty. Congratulations. Your Imperial Majesty has stepped into the realm of transcendence that all living beings dream of. This is truly a great blessing for our god race. Xiao Yan laughed heartily, then knelt to the ground, fawning. Minister Xiao, are you trying to forsake darkness for light? Your Imperial Majesty, why would you say such a thing? Your subject's heart has always been with you. There's no such thing as forsaking darkness for light. Xiao Yan lowered his head. When Zhou Wu heard this, he laughed maniacally. Even space itself trembled beneath his laughter. His roiling imperial might made Xiao Yan and Xiao Hu tremble from the depths of their souls. This was absolutely a transcendent realm expert. Xiao Hu aside, Xiao Yan was an expert at the Imperial Emperor realm. Zhou Wu's laughter alone was enough to make his very soul tremble in fear. There was no way Xiao Yan would believe him if he said he hadn't transcended. However, when he confirmed this matter, his mood sank again and again. Who in the world could stop Zhou Wu now? Minister Xiao, your words have resonated with me. I just wonder if you're speaking from the bottom of your heart? Heaven and earth can bear witness to my sincerity. Heaven and earth can bear witness. I no longer care about the heavens and earth. Rather than using heaven and earth as a witness, I might as well verify it myself. Tell me where Emperor Star Yi Zichen has gone. If you can tell me, I'll believe your sincerity. If you don't, your subject is slow-witted. I don't understand your Imperial Majesty's intentions. Xiao Yan kowtowed deeply once more, then rose to his feet and looked directly at Zhou Wu. The outsiders are waiting for an opportunity to attack our era. Your Imperial Majesty's transcendence is a blessing for our era. You're not going to the outside to defend against your enemies, but are here searching for the Master of the Stars. Are you trying to teach me what to do? Zhou Wu's gaze darkened. I dare not. Sensing the change in Zhou Wulin's spiritual pressure, Xiao Yan hurriedly lowered his head. I was confused, so I blurted it out. If I offended your Imperial Majesty in any way, please forgive me. However, the whereabouts of the Emperor's Star is uncertain, and this subject does not know. If you don't want to say it, then don't say it. Why do you have to beat around the bush? I dare not. Shao Qing, there's no need for you to continue acting. Whether you're sincere or not, this Emperor's eyes are very sharp. I can see it all clearly. Zhou Wu smiled indifferently. This Emperor is looking for him because I want him to collect the corpses of his two subordinates. I pity those two auxiliary stars. They gave their all for him, but in the end they died. There wasn't even anyone to collect the corpse. Fortunately, this Emperor is benevolent and righteous. I cannot bear to see the corpses of such a loyal man exposed in the wild, so I specially brought these two over for him. As soon as he finished speaking, two men covered in blood descended from the sky. Xiao Yan and Xiao Hu hurriedly rushed forward to hug them. When they saw their faces clearly, Yin Shang and Goyuzhan. By now, their bodies were practically charred black, and the blood covering their bodies had already scabbed over. Horrifying wounds covered their bodies, and they breathed more than they breathed in. Chapter 1791. He'd done all he could. Xiao Yan and Xiao Hu clenched their teeth and clenched their fists tightly. They held Yin Shang and Goyuzhan in their arms. This undisguised action naturally fell into Zhou Wu's eyes. He calmly looked at Xiao Yan and Xiao Hu, who were hugging Yin Shang and the others, and revealed a spring breeze-like smile. Angry! In truth, you should be thanking me. If I hadn't brought them here, they might have been eaten alive long ago. How could their corpses still be intact? Zhou Wu scanned his surroundings a few times, then gained a clear understanding of the situation. It was an empty city. He couldn't sense anyone else inside. If he was right, they'd all been dispatched to reinforce the other divine mountains or the land of chaos. However, he found it strange that he couldn't immediately locate Yi Zichen. Could it be that he wasn't in the city? Impossible. If Yi Zichen weren't on the divine mountains, the minister of the left and the minister of the right wouldn't need to stand guard outside. Their stubborn defense meant that Yi Zichen was inside the divine mountains, and they were buying time for him. Xiao Yan had done the same thing just now. To put it bluntly, beating around the bush was a waste of time. Why were they buying time for Yi Zichen? The moment Zhou Wu transcended, the situation was set in stone. No matter how much they struggled, how could they resist his transcendental rage? There was only one possibility. They were buying time for Yi Zichen to transcend. Dream on! Zhou Wu, who was in the void, suddenly shouted. His divine sense spread out wildly. Do you think I can't find him just because you don't tell me? You're delusional if you think he can transcend to deal with me. I have some bad news to tell you. Guli hadn't even responded to the 5 elemental spirits' questions when his solemn voice rang out in their ears. When they looked at him, they saw that his forehead was covered in beads of sweat for some reason. His eyes were bloodshot, and his entire body was tense, as if he were doing his utmost to resist something. The lightning spirit frowned. Before long, his expression was just as grave as Guli's. A transcendent. As soon as he said this, the expressions of the 5 elemental fairies changed. Guli's entire body tensed up. It's Zhou Wu. Zhou Wu has come. Moreover, he transcended. At that moment, He finally understood what Yi Zichen wanted to tell him before he fainted. It wasn't that Pilar had deceived them. It was because someone had truly transcended successfully that the outer realm god race attacked them. However, the one who transcended was neither Yi Zichen nor Gu Li. Instead, it was Zhou Wu, who had never transcended fate. How could he transcend? Didn't they say that only the Emperor's star could transcend? Who told you that? The fire elemental sprite said. Everyone has the possibility of transcending. There has never been such a thing as transcending fate. What? When Gu Li heard this, he froze. It was clear from his eyes just how shocked he was. He had never heard of such a saying that everyone had a transcendental destiny. But this transcendence aura is strange. We don't know what method he used to transcend. Furthermore, his aura of death and blood is extremely dense. If nothing unexpected happens, he'll have killed at least 100 million people in the near future, said the electric sprite after a moment of thought. 100 million. A rain of blood. At practically the same time, the three of them thought back to that rain of blood. Furthermore, the central divine mountain had always been enveloped in a red barrier. Anyone who passed by could sense the surging blood energy around it. Back then, they knew Zhou Wu was up to no good. The Upheaval Alliance had sent people to investigate, but they hadn't found anything useful. They had no choice but to keep an eye on the mountain's surroundings. Who would have guessed? He was using the entire mountain as a sacrifice to transcend. We have to hurry. The electric sprite glanced at the other elemental sprites. The fire sprite nodded vigorously, then turned to Gu Li. Trust us. There's absolutely no way we'll let the three powers inside him reject each other. Once we fuse with him, we'll become his severed arm. When that happens, there's no need to blabber on. Just do what you need to. When he saw that the elemental sprite was still blabbering, Gu Li couldn't help but shout angrily. The other elemental sprites were speechless. He'd clearly been the one who'd asked them to speak, but now he was complaining about their nagging. However, the elemental sprites understood why Gu Li was acting this way. The transcendent hadn't arrived yet, but now he was. Furthermore, they could clearly sense his hostility towards the Emperor's star. Stop reviving him. Surprisingly, the fire sprites weren't infatuated with their big sister's beauty. After all, both Su Yan and Xiao Yumei were peerless beauties. However, he didn't reveal even the slightest hint of lust. His gaze was grave as he hovered above Yi Zichen. But, trust us, we won't let him die, replied the fire sprite confidently. When she saw their resolute gazes, Su Yan bit her lip and retracted her hand from Yi Zichen's body. Without the support of Su Yan's life force, Yi Zichen's body rapidly deteriorated. Lightning! Coming! The lightning sprite pointed, and all the surrounding lightning essence gathered around Yi Zichen. Lightning! Wind! Water! The fire sprite called out one by one. The other elemental sprites gathered the 5 elements of heaven and earth and surrounded Yi Zichen. Fire, come! The fire sprite stood between Yi Zichen's eyebrows and slapped his head. Instantly, Yi Zichen's entire body burst into flames. However, the flames weren't hot at all, nor did they burn anything on the bed. Only then did the fire sprite let out a long sigh of relief. The other elemental sprites also landed in different locations. It's about to begin. Got it. The other elemental sprites nodded vigorously. Then, the fire sprite took the lead and reached out his left arm. The other elemental sprites did the same. The 5 elements of heaven and earth gathered in the circle they'd formed. The 5 elements fused together, and the 5 sprites' bodies gradually coalesced. How long do you need? At that moment, Gu Li suddenly roared, "Kill him!" Only then did Xiao Yumei and Su Yan notice that his feet were drenched in sweat. It was as if he'd just been fished out of water. Chapter 1792. Up in the sky, Zhou Wu's divine sense swept out like a tidal wave. In the blink of an eye, the entire divine mountain was within range of his divine sense. Every movement here, even the tiniest speck of dust, was within his grasp. Only, is he really not here? Zhou Wu narrowed his eyes, doubt flashing through his mind. He had absolute confidence in his divine sense. Even if it was an imperial monarch or imperial monarch realm expert, it would be impossible for them to conceal themselves from his divine sense. He'd turned the entire divine mountain upside down, but he still hadn't found Yi Zichen. Why don't we look north for a bit longer? Kuei Lin took a few steps forward and whispered to Zhou Wu. Zhou Wu tilted his head, while Kuei Lin glanced at Xiao Yan and Xiao Hu. Both of them looked flustered, especially when you were facing the north. If I'm not mistaken, the Yi Zichen you're looking for is to the north. The north? Zhou Wu muttered, then focused his divine sense on the northern part of the city. Cough. Gu Li suddenly coughed up a mouthful of blood. The purplish-red blood soaked his lower lip, and he staggered back a few steps. Before long, he sensed a wave of pure life energy coursing through his limbs and bones. Every cell in his body felt as if they'd been reborn. Many thanks. No need to thank me. I was just worried about him. Su Yan coldly retracted her hand. Even if Gu Li had turned over a new leaf, her grudge against him wasn't something that could be resolved with a smile. Just now, she'd intervened because she was worried about Yi Zichen. Neither she nor Xiao Yumei could resist Zhou Wu's transcendental divine sense. Right now, only Gu Li had the ability to do so. She naturally couldn't let anything happen to Yi Zichen before he woke up. Gu Li laughed softly, then said no more. The power of the stars surged through his body. As he did so, he didn't forget to urge the 5 elemental fairies to hurry up. You'd best hurry up. Zhou Wu seems to have sensed something and is investigating this area even more carefully. Give us an hour. The fire elemental sprite, whose body had already fused with the 5 elements, spoke with great difficulty. The other 5 elemental sprites were also progressing at about the same pace as him. From the bitter looks on their faces, it could be seen that they weren't in an easy situation either. Looking at the center of the 5 of them, the 5 elements blended with each other in a dazzling display. With the fusion of the 5 elemental spirits, the 5 elements in the middle became even more dazzling. If one looked closely, they would see that these 5 elements had already taken the shape of an arm. This was definitely a good sign. The elemental spirits of the 5 elements needed to form the 5 elemental arms, and they were able to form it in less than 100 breaths of time. Both Su Yan and Xiao Yumei were happy to see this kind of efficiency. However, it was still too slow for Gu Li. An hour? That's easy for you to say. No one could understand what Gu Li was going through. Right now, he was facing Zhou Wu, the only transcendent cultivator of this era. Even though all he did was defend against the probing of his divine sense, he had to do everything perfectly to hide the entire house right under his nose. He had to do everything perfectly and not leave a single trace behind. It was a huge drain on his mind. This is already the shortest amount of time we can do it. According to our plan, the 5 elements' arms should be completed in 6 hours or more. It's precisely because we know you won't be able to hold on for long that we forcefully fused with the elements, said the lightning sprite. In short, we'll need at least half an hour. As for how you're going to fight for it, that's up to you. Damn it! Gu Li could only curse angrily, grit his teeth, and persevere. By the bed, the 5 elements' spirits forcefully fused with the elements, filling the small room with multicolored light. Gu Li's star power enveloped the room like a thin veil, making it seem as if the room had disappeared from the city. I'm losing my patience. Zhou Wu's gaze suddenly turned cold. This was an insult to him. He was a mighty transcendent expert, yet he couldn't find Yi Zichen's location? Furthermore, he'd wasted so much time doing so. Suddenly, he completely withdrew his divine sense, then grabbed Xiao Yan with his right hand. Tell me, where exactly is Yi Zichen? What method did you use to hide him? Xiao Yan's face flushed, but his eyes flashed with amusement and mockery. He cocked his head to the side, refusing to even look at Zhou Wu. He said nothing. Interesting. Did you think I wouldn't be able to find him if you didn't tell me? He waved his hand violently, and Xiao Yan fell heavily to the ground, shattering the stone slabs on the street. Xiao Yan coughed up a mouthful of blood. If nothing out of the ordinary happened, this attack had damaged his heart and lungs. It was only natural that his bones had fractured. Xiao Hu hurried over and stuffed a pill into Xiao Yan's mouth. He carefully carried Xiao Yan back. As he watched Xiao Yan cough up blood, Xiao Hu wanted nothing more than to hack Zhou Wu into 1,000 pieces. However, he couldn't do that. No matter how much he hated Yi Zichen, he had to humble himself and submit. There were far too many people he needed to look after. Whether it was the heavily injured Xiao Yan, or Little White of the Tiango Yao race, or the Minister of the Left and Minister of the Right, they all needed Xiao Hu, the only conscious person left, to take care of. If he also angered Zhou Wu, the others would also perish. Humph. Zhou Wu merely snorted in response to Xiao Hu's treatment of Xiao Yan. In his eyes, these people were nothing more than ants. Whether they lived or died didn't matter to him at all. In this entire era, the only people he cared about were those two brats with the Emperor's star's celestial fate. Hide. He couldn't deny that their concealment techniques were truly brilliant. Even though he was a majestic transcendent expert, he found it difficult to track them down so quickly. But could they really hide? Explode. Up in the sky, Zhou Wu shouted softly. In an instant, the space within Chaos City rumbled. Damn it, I knew he'd do this. Guli clenched his teeth and cursed. He'd guessed that Zhou Wu would do this for sure. As soon as he finished speaking, he no longer tried to hide anything. He immediately activated the Emperor's star's starlight. Dazzling golden starlight poured down from the sky. At that moment, the hidden room reappeared within the city. Without the protection of the stars, the room fell into the range of Zhou Wu's divine sense. You can't hide anymore? Chapter 1793. Accompanied by a loud bang in the void, the world instantly darkened. The storm condensed gravel into a tornado of sand and dust, making it difficult to open one's eyes. Ding! As the sandstorm roared, Xiao Yumei instinctively set up a barrier around Yi Zichen's bed. The collapsed building didn't affect the elemental fairy's progress in the slightest. An hour. Guli gnashed his teeth and muttered the shortest amount of time the elemental fairies had told him. With just the few of them, stopping Zhou Wu for an hour was easier said than done. The heavens have chosen two emperors. In the void, Zhou Wu chuckled indifferently. The raging wind lingered around him, and the dark red color of the apocalypse shrouded the empty city. No wonder Star Lord Yi hasn't come out yet. It seems he's been injured quite badly in the outside and hasn't recovered yet. Hm? Xiao Yumei and Su Yan couldn't help but knit their brows. Zhou Wu actually knew Yi Zichen had been to the outside, but what truly shocked them was, it was as if he hadn't seen the elemental fairies at all. Guli? For a moment, both Xiao Yumei and Su Yan had the same thought. The elemental fairies were right above Yi Zichen's head, so both of them could see them clearly. Given Zhou Wu's cautious personality, he definitely wouldn't be as calm as he was right now. It was highly likely that Guli had intentionally concealed the fairy's existence. Earlier, he'd been able to make the entire building disappear from Zhou Wu's divine sense. Now, it wasn't impossible for him to erase the 5 elemental fairies. As they considered this, Xiao Yumei and Su Yan couldn't help but glance at him. Meanwhile, Gu Li's expression was stiff, and sweat dripped uncontrollably from his forehead. Fortunately, Gu Li couldn't help but look in Yi Zichen's direction. This was truly a blessing in the midst of misfortune. Since Zhou Wu had decided to use that method to find Yi Zichen, Gu Li had no way of concealing his room. Thus, he decided to disperse the starlight around the room, but before that, he used it to conceal the 5 elemental fairies around Yi Zichen. Due to the suddenness of the situation, he'd set it up in haste. In truth, he wasn't sure if he could pull the wool over everyone's eyes. However, Zhou Wu's words made him certain that he had succeeded. What he needed to do next was to figure out how to gain an hour's time from Zhou Wu. Being a hero is such a tough job. A bitter smile flashed across Gu Li's face, then he collected his thoughts. He took a few steps forward and cupped his fists towards Zhou Wu. God Emperor! Star Lord Gu! Zhou Wu's eyes were filled with mockery. During the Five Elements' great emperor's reign, the Emperor's star had chosen him as its master. However, Zhou Wu had usurped its fate and caused him to die with resentment. The two emperors chosen were still not Zhou Wu. The previous auxiliary star of the Transcendence Tomb abode said that he did not transcend fate and did not allow him to enter. In the end, none of the people chosen by the Emperor's star had transcended, but he, who had been abandoned by the Emperor's star countless times, had transcended. This was truly a laughable outcome. When he saw Gu Li, the Emperor's star's candidate, and his low cultivation, his heart filled with mockery. Gu Li didn't take Zhou Wu's playfulness to heart. In fact, he hoped to see this happen. So long as Zhou Wu wanted to put on an act, he'd let him. What he needed now was time. Once the elemental spirits of the five elements formed arms and suppressed the chaos in Yi Zichen's body, they might have a chance to turn things around. However, using words to stall for time required skill. Blindly lowering his head and ignoring him was the best way. You transcended. Congratulations! Gu Li glanced at Zhou Wu, then smiled playfully. You didn't transcend fate, yet you managed to transcend? No wonder the god race is the outside realm. You really have some tricks up your sleeves. Are you angry that you didn't transcend fate? Asked Zhou Wu playfully. That's fine. Just now, Gu Li thought to himself, he was just testing the waters with a method of communication. If it didn't work out, he'd use another method to communicate with Zhou Wu. From the looks of things, Zhou Wu seemed to enjoy Gu Li's words. Gu Li laughed maniacally to himself. He liked being cursed at. What a wretch. You're overthinking things. Given enough time, we'll naturally transcend. I just never would have guessed that a lucky bastard like you would get ahead of us. Since Zhou Wu liked it, Gu Li naturally had to satisfy his desire to be abused. Ha! Zhou Wu laughed coldly. Transcending is great. Spiritual pressure isn't something people like us can resist. Look at this city. Yi Zichen spent who knows how much manpower and resources to build it. Now you've come and destroyed it all. If he wakes up, I wonder if he'll cough up another mouthful of blood and pass out. Gu Li shrugged. Gu Li kicked the rubble beneath his feet, then looked around. All he saw was a mess of spiritual pressure. Envious? Are you talking about your cultivation or yourself? If it's your cultivation, I'm naturally envious. Who doesn't want to transcend? But if it's you, I wouldn't dare be envious. What do you mean? You're a majestic emperor, yet you use divine citizens as a bargaining chip to transcend. What's even funnier is that in the end, you became the god race's lackey. What do you think? Wagging your tail at the god king of the outside realm sounds fun, doesn't it? You have a sharp tongue. Despite Gu Li's words, Zhou Wu maintained a smile on his face. Even Xiao Yumei and Kuei Lin's former subordinates didn't understand his smile. Why was he so happy to have someone spit on him? Was Zhou Wu a masochist? However, both Gu Li and Kuei Lin understood his smile. It was the smile of a victor to a loser. It was the smile of a supreme being to an ant. It was like an ant provoking a lion. In the lion's eyes, the ant's provocation was nothing more than a clown overestimating its own abilities. Zhou Wu had lost far too much during his breakthrough. He wanted to take back everything he'd lost from Yi Zichen and Gu Li. He wanted to be absolutely satisfied. Gu Li had grasped exactly what he was thinking, but he never would have guessed that Zhou Wu was just toying with him. I don't have a sharp tongue. You're an exalted transcendent expert, while I'm just an imperial insect. If I offend you, I'll lose my life. I'm just stating the truth, laughed Gu Li, then knelt on the ground and tossed the rubble around. Then he arched his brows and looked at Zhou Wu. Hey, right, Your Excellency God Emperor, there's something I don't understand. Is the god race's dog food tasty? Gu Li was still using his original method of provoking Zhou Wu, trying to stall for time. That's enough. I'll cooperate with you. Chapter 1794. In the blink of an eye, the entire world seemed to fall silent. Zhou Wu saw it. Only now did Gu Li realize what Zhou Wu's smile meant. He hadn't been fooling around at all. Instead, Zhou Wu had been toying with him, toying with his arrogance. The elemental spirits' expressions shifted as they formed their arms. However, there was no turning back. The moment they started, they couldn't stop. Buy time for us. The fire spirit's transmission reverberated through Gu Li's sea of consciousness. Buy time. Gu Li naturally knew he had to buy time, but how could he possibly win an hour from Zhou Wu? This wasn't Gu Li's self-imposed limit. Never mind him. Even if all the emperors of the god race arrived, they might not even be able to win an hour from Zhou Wu. Let me take a good look at these kids. Up in the sky, Zhou Wu rubbed his eyebrows. His expression was so rich it could be made into emojis. Back in the day, the 5 elements elemental spirits were what the 5 elements emperor dreamed of. If he were still alive, he'd definitely be excited to see these kids. His calm voice echoed through the sky. He narrowed his eyes, lowered his hand, and looked down at Gu Li, who was standing on the ground, his body tense. Can you tell me what they're doing? Yang Qi asked. They're not trying to help Yi Zichen transcend, are they? Gu Li's expression froze. When Zhou Wu saw this, he chuckled and arched his brows. It seems I was right. No wonder those 2 auxiliary stars tried their best to delay me even though they knew they were doomed. They were trying to buy time for Star Lord Yi to transcend. The tornado above the city grew even stronger. Just this gale alone was enough to destroy the spirit array inscribed by the array formation Grandmaster, causing the entire city to collapse. Boulders weighing tens of thousands of kilograms were sent flying into the sky. The strong winds caused Gu Li's star power to surge. Su Yan and Xiao Yumei immediately rushed to Yi Zichen's bedside to resist the onslaught of the wind. They didn't want to delay the elemental spirit's progress. What a pity. It looks like you'd have succeeded in another hour. You must be feeling sorry for me too. Why didn't I come an hour later? He had completely seen through them. Whether it was the intentions of the 5 elements elemental spirits or the time they needed, Zhou Wu had completely seen through them. Do you want this emperor to give you an hour? Zhou Wu suddenly asked. Why did he say that? Teasing? Judging from the current situation, there was an 80% chance that they were just toying with him. Xiao Yumei and the others were a bit angry. Things had already come to this, yet they still wanted to gain pleasure with words. It would be best if you could. At that moment, Gu Li narrowed his eyes and snorted. I'm just afraid that our God Emperor doesn't have that kind of courage and insight. Why? The God Emperor must be worried about whether Yi Zichen will transcend as well. If he can transcend, your existence will no longer be transcendent, and you might even be suppressed. Everything you have painstakingly built up will vanish in an instant. Thinking about it, with Lord God Emperor's temperament, he would definitely not dare to make such a decision. It's decided, right? Are you trying to provoke me? Zhou Wu couldn't help but laugh uproariously. It seems you really are at your wits' end. To think you'd even resort to such a low-level tactic. Then would the God Emperor dare? Gu Li looked at him, his eyes shining. I wouldn't dare. In truth, Gu Li had already explained everything for Zhou Wu. It was just as he'd said. Zhou Wu really was afraid. No one knew whether or not Yi Zichen would transcend after awakening, or how strong he'd become once he did. Zhou Wu didn't like doing things he wasn't confident in. He could have easily solved all the problems, so why did he have to find unnecessary trouble for himself? If he got rid of Yi Zichen and Gu Li, he'd steal their celestial fate. Then he'd be the only transcendent since ancient times to possess 2 emperor stars. That way, he wouldn't even need to worry about the god-kings of the outside realm. Who knew who would be his master then? That's right. Zhou Wu had never considered becoming a dog from the start. If you could be a human, why would you want to be a dog? As expected, Gu Li couldn't help but mutter to himself. Provocation was a low-level tactic. He'd have to try to find out if it worked. He'd tried and he'd seen the results. Zhou Wu hadn't succeeded. In that case, there was only one thing they could do. You two, guard this place well. Don't let Zhou Wu's aura destroy the fusion of the 5 elemental fairies. Gu Li glanced at Xiao Yumei and the others. Then you. I've decided to be a hero for once. For better or for worse, I'm one of the twin emperors. I'd like to see if Yi Zichen's heroism is really addictive. Suddenly, he tore off the ribbon binding Gu Li's hair. As he did, it was as if Gu Li's seal had been broken. Emperor, sovereign, half-step transcendent. In just a few breaths of time, Gu Li's cultivation soared like mad, all the way to the half-step transcendent realm. I knew it. How could a majestic emperor star only have emperors? Zhou Wu's expression didn't change in the face of Gu Li's rapid rise in cultivation. Compared to you, a transcendent, I'm still far too weak. Gu Li's long hair trailed the ground, and his gray eyes had turned azure. Turbulent waves of energy radiated from his body, but anyone with the slightest bit of insight could tell that his aura was incredibly unstable. It was as if his cultivation didn't belong to him at all, but had been borrowed from someone else. This isn't your strength, Zhou Wu said when he saw it. Of course not. If I were half-step transcendent, Yi Zichen's starlight would have been mine long ago. Why would I leave it for you? Snorted Gu Li. You want to defeat me with borrowed power. I'm not defeating you. I just want to keep you occupied for an hour, interrupted Gu Li. Gu Li interrupted Zhou Wu. At that moment, the blood-red sky suddenly lit up with starlight. The North Micro-Emperor star's radiance blazed, and dazzling starlight poured into Gu Li's body. Gradually, the blood-red light enveloping Gu Li's body exploded, and his handsome face contorted into a sinister expression. This power didn't belong to him. He'd never experienced this kind of power before. Suddenly, such power poured into him. It was naturally a huge burden, keeping Zhou Wu occupied for an hour. He didn't even know if Gu Li's body could endure such a burden for more than an hour. But he still had to try. If he tried, there was a chance. If he didn't, there was no chance. The influx of power caused Gu Li's face to contort in pain, but he gritted his teeth. It was just that. It disappeared. Just a second ago, Gu Li's berserk power had vanished without a trace. His long hair fell to his shoulders, and his azure eyes returned to gray. His strength had gone from half-step transcendent to emperor level. Only then did everyone notice that the band at the end of Gu Li's hair had been reattached at some point. Xiao Yumei, Su Yan, Gu Li, Kuei Lin, and the others didn't understand. Only Zhou Wu stared intently at the space next to Gu Li. Then, a black-robed man stepped out of the space. Chapter 1795. It was a tribe from the old era. There were 12 chairs placed neatly in the spacious tent, but most of them were empty. A middle-aged man dressed in animal skin sat cross-legged on a cattail hassock in the center of the tent. His name was Dijiang, the commander of the 12 ancestral sorcerer shaman and the highest-ranking person in the tribe. There was a solid wooden table about 2 meters long and half a meter wide in front of him. From time to time, the table would release a refreshing fragrance that lingered in the tent. I can't believe you're back. In human form, Dijiang looked at the man standing in the hall expressionlessly. The man was missing an arm, and the blood that flowed from his body was not pure red. Why can't I come back? I belong here. Although the man was heavily injured, he still spoke with energy. He did not show any fear in the face of the ancestral sorcerers in the hall. He looked at the people in the hall without avoiding them. Only 4 ancestral sorcerers? I thought there would be at least 7 of you when I came back. Interesting. Do we have to welcome you with great fanfare when you come back? Fire god Zhurong, who was burning with flames, slammed the chair. In an instant, heat waves surged out of his body, raising the temperature in the tent by several times. Zhurong, it's so hot. Zhurong, quickly retract your powers. The other two ancestral sorcerers waved their hands, and the space around them seemed to be cut apart. The heat waves in the tent could no longer surge within half a meter of them. The way you treat your guests is really special. The people in the tent laughed, but they did not take Zhurong's heat to heart. Look at him. Hospitality? He thinks he's an important guest of our tribe. Zhurong extended his hand and looked at the other ancestral sorcerers. His mouth is on his body. Who can stop him from saying what he wants to say? A low buzzing that sounded like a mosquito reverberated in the tent. The ear-piercing vibration made the ancestral sorcerers in the hall curse. Gomong, speak properly. Who else can you blame? Zhurong made this tent so hot. I hate heat the most. Gomong, who had long hair, combed the ends of his hair. Another especially sharp voice came from the vibrating space. The ancestral sorcerers in the tent were complaining to each other, completely ignoring the outsiders. Big Brother Dejiang could only sigh softly. He couldn't be bothered with these guys, and said to the injured man in the middle of the tent, "You are a rare guest of the witch tribe. Tell me, Lich King, what are you here for?" "Here to complain." The person who appeared in the sorcerer tribe's tent was the Lich King who had escaped from Zhou. He had never kept his word, but this time, he really kept his word. After he escaped, he went straight to the shaman tribe to take revenge on Zhou. Previously, when the Fox Empress and the Four Directions Palace Swanee severely injured him, he wasn't this angry. Zhou had really touched his bottom line. No matter what, he could not swallow this resentment. Complain. Dejiang raised his eyebrows. Looks like you're here to ask us for help. It's rare for you to ask for help. Tell us what you want to sue us for. God Emperor Zhou. As soon as the Lich King finished speaking, the other ancestral sorcerers in the tent shut their mouths in unison. They either looked at the Lich King directly or obscurely. Not long after, they all looked at Dejiang again. Dejiang exchanged a glance with them and nodded lightly before speaking. Zhou? That's him. This guy has fallen. He could have been a god emperor, but he chose to become a corpse refiner. I saw him absorb the death aura, resentment, and blood aura of heaven and earth with my own eyes. Isn't he King stealing my job? You told me personally that there can only be one corpse refiner in this era, and that's me. Lich King, now that Zhou is in my line of work, shouldn't you take care of him for me? The Lich King said, glaring. That's all? Dejiang replied calmly. Isn't that enough? The Lich King roared hoarsely. However, when he looked around, he realized that the other ancestral sorcerers were all indifferent, as if they didn't care about this at all. It's all your fault that I'm in this situation. I can't return to the Fox clan, and my sister thinks I killed myself. She hates me so much that my teeth itch. Not long ago, she beat me until I was half crippled. I didn't even dare fight back for fear of hurting her. It was you who told me that refining corpses to the extreme could resurrect me. Brother-in-law, you even told me that I was the only one in this era who could walk this path, and that only I could resurrect my brother-in-law. That's why I chose this line of work. Now that brat Zhou is stealing my job, aren't you going to do anything about it? We didn't say we weren't going to do anything, it's just that. We already know everything you're saying. Dejiang shrugged helplessly. We found out about Zhou's situation half a month ago. Do you think we'll be interested in what you're telling us now? The era was on the brink of life and death, and even the shamans couldn't stay out of it. From the moment they sent the shaman ancestors to get in touch with Yi Zichen's Emperor Star, the shamans had been preparing for their clash with the outsiders. Naturally, the shamans had intelligence agents in the God Realm's territories. Half a month ago, Rushu of the 12 shaman ancestors returned from Zhou Wu's place and reported this to Di Jiang. They'd already digested this information for half a month, so the Lich King naturally wasn't surprised to hear it again. "Then what are you waiting for?" shouted the Lich King. "Who said we were waiting? Are you blind? Can't you see that most of the shaman ancestors have already left?" Zhurong, with a fiery temper, shouted before Di Jiang could. "Back then, I told you this kid wasn't cut out for this. Even with the support of our shaman race's resources, he still hasn't resurrected the 5 elements great emperor. Heavens! All he knows is how to brag. Is his brain full of glue? Who are you cursing? You're a hybrid of a dragon and a snake. Little brat, I think you're looking for." Zhurong raised his hand and towering flames appeared in his palm. In the blink of an eye, the tent was burnt to a crisp. When the other shaman ancestors saw this, they sighed helplessly, straightened their clothes, and retreated. "He's really attacking." This time, the Lich King panicked. When he saw that the other shaman ancestors had no intention of intervening, he gulped and shouted, "Wait a moment. Wait. I have other information." Di Jiang raised his hand, but Zhurong's fiery palm didn't fall. At the same time, his gaze fell upon the Lich King. The Lich King could sense that his survival depended on this piece of information. "I'm telling you, this piece of information will absolutely frighten you to death." Zhou Wu transcended, and the one who helped him transcend was a god king of the outsiders. "That's it?" asked Di Jiang. "That's it." The Lich King nodded instinctively, then sensed that something was wrong. "Hey, it can't be. You." Chapter 1796. "What are you doing? Even if you want me to die, let me die in my homeland. Why did you drag me here? Let me go. I want to go back and find my sister. I'm telling you, if you kill me, my sister won't let you off." The great Lich King was now as insignificant as a shrimp. A giant covered in flames grabbed him by the head and lifted him into the outlands with 2 fingers. Everything was gray and hazy as far as the eye could see. His shouts didn't receive any response in this vast space. "Hey, let me go. Do you have no regard for human life? Forget it. Put Zhurong down." "We're almost there," Di Jiang sighed softly. Di Jiang, who was walking in front, sighed softly. Hearing this, the flame giant flicked his finger and sent the Lich King flying into the outer space. "What a noisy brat! My head's hurting from all the noise." Once he finished speaking, the fiery giant Zhu Rong shook his body and turned back into a human being. However, the fire on his body was still burning for a long time. "What do you mean we're almost there? What do you mean? Explain yourself," the Lich King yelled. Why had they dragged him into the Outlands? Could it be that they wanted to get rid of him here? No way. The Lich King didn't think he'd offended them in any way. He'd just had a bad temper in the past and had been scolded by the shaman ancestors a few times. He'd used the remains of their ancestors to refine corpses to test his power. He'd even filled their sacred land with death energy that hadn't been cleansed even now. Wasn't it just, actually, it was nothing much. Besides, it was the shamans who'd made him walk the great Tao of death. If they hadn't brainwashed him into believing he was talented in the great Tao of death, he wouldn't have been able to revive his brother-in-law, the 5 Elements' great emperor. He was now living comfortably in the Nine-Tailed Fox clan. Even if he didn't achieve much, he had his sister's protection. At least he could live happily for the rest of his life. "I'm telling you, you can't. Shut up, brat." Zhu Rong raised his hand and slapped on the back of the Lich King's head. Next, he pointed his finger forward and said, "Take a good look at what that is." "Look at what?" Among the 12 Grand Wizards, the Lich King disliked the fire god Zhurong the most. She had a fiery temper and was always trying to get physical with him. Hearing Zhu Rong, the Lich King unwillingly looked at where Zhu Rong was pointing at. What came into view was still a gray expanse, and there was nothing special. How blind! Judging from the Lich King's facial expression, Zhu Rong knew that he didn't see anything. The Lich King walked hundreds of meters forward, as if he was carrying a chicken. At this moment, he finally saw what Zhu Rong wanted him to see. It was still a gray, chaotic space, but he could vaguely see something running back and forth in the chaos. He focused his gaze in that direction, the wizard tribe. Why are the people of the sorcerer tribe here? No one thought that the Lich King would ask such an idiotic question. Why would the sorcerer tribe come here? Wasn't it obvious? Why did he have to ask? Zhu Rong forcibly suppressed his anger, put down his hand, and didn't even look at the Lich King. He was really worried that he would smash this kid's head with one slap. He's here. At this moment, the space in the extraterritorial space shook. The Candle Dragon stepped through the void and arrived. When he saw the Lich King, his eyes flickered with astonishment. His meaning was obvious, which was, why did he bring this idiot here? I'll take it. He was definitely not a match for the 12 ancestral shamans. Moreover, the sorcerer tribe was here, and he had to lower his head. They could say whatever they wanted, and he wouldn't stoop to their level. This idiot came to us and said that he had something important to tell us. Emperor Jiang and the others stayed behind to listen to him. In the end, this kid told us what we already knew, and we wasted more than an hour's time, Zhu Rong cursed. The Candle Dragon covered his mouth and laughed hysterically. The ancestral shamans of the sorcerer tribe knew the Lich King very well. Even if Ji Hao wasn't there just now, he knew what would have happened. As for why Zhu Rong would be so angry, Ji Hao could roughly guess the reason. No wonder he came so late. We've been waiting for a long time, the Candle Dragon said. Is everything set up? Emperor Jiang asked. Everything is set up. The Candle Dragon nodded and said, the other brothers brought 300,000 sorcerer tribe warriors each, and landed at the location that we've discussed earlier. Everything is ready, and we're just waiting for the few of you. We've already sent our clansmen over. As long as you're in position, we can take action. Demon Emperor Dongwang is fine? He's already trapped the Freedom Divine King's divine consciousness. As long as that divine consciousness doesn't come out, his other divine consciousnesses can't move. What a trustworthy guy. The fire god Zhu Rong laughed. His attitude towards the Lich King was completely different. That's for the best. Emperor Jiang's expression turned solemn. He said, this time, the sorcerer tribe has come out in full force. From the moment we moved, we had no way out. Right now, we're in the same boat as Ji Yuan. Tell our clansmen, don't even think about getting lucky. Give it to me. Give them 200% of your usual abilities. I've already told them about this. The Candle Dragon smiled and said, since that's the case, let's cut to the chase. Gomang, Zhurong, Rushu, the few of you go to your positions. Wait for my signal to attack. Yes. The 3 ancestral sorcerers nodded heavily. They lifted their feet lightly and hid in the chaos. Even though the ancestral sorcerers didn't tell the Lich King what they were going to do, he could roughly guess from their words. They were going to attack the Outerium celestial race. Oh my god! Were these people crazy? Even if they weren't afraid of death and attacked the Outerium celestial race, why did they bring him here? He was very clear about the Outerium celestial race's abilities. How should we deal with this kid? The Candle Dragon, who hadn't left yet, pointed at the Lich King, who was already in a daze. The Lich King, who was pointed at, immediately glared and shouted, why don't I go back? Why are you going back? Emperor Jiang asked. You want to attack the Outerium celestial race, but I don't want to attack them. You guys fight, I'm going back. I'm going back to help my sister and the rest. While I was running, it seems like Zhou resurrected a bunch of dead people and went to attack the other divine mountains. I'm going back to earn some corpse energy and refine some puppets to defend them. Why do you want those? The corpse energy produced here is much thicker than over there. Say, is there something wrong with your brains? The Lich King shouted. Ji Yuan is in danger. You came to attack the celestial race, besiege Wei to save Zhao. Do you understand? Chapter 1797. The golden chessboard enveloped the world. The Freedom Divine King was really trapped in this chessboard. It was unknown how long the chessboard could trap him. At the very least, there were no signs of him being able to leave. Sitting cross-legged on the chessboard, he frowned slightly. Just now, his spiritual will had received some unfriendly news. The sorcerer race actually went to attack the Outerium god race. When he learned of this, he was more or less stunned. In the past, the shaman tribe had always remained silent when an epoch ended. They might secretly help the epoch, but it was rare for them to openly join hands with the epoch. Interesting. From the beginning to the end, the Freedom Divine King maintained his smile. He narrowed his eyes and looked at a spot on the chessboard. Is this the reason you trapped me? However, the Freedom Divine King believed that Dongwang Tai knew what he was referring to. As expected, when the Freedom Deity King finished speaking, the demonic beast Emperor Dongwang did not reveal any signs of confusion. That's one of them. One of them? From the Freedom Godly King's point of view, Demon Emperor Dongwang's first sentence was a psychological attack. Number 1. He did not believe that Dongwang Tai and the others had any other tricks up their sleeve. The stars left behind by the Second Era were all trapped, and no one could help the Second Era. Nearly half of the experts in the era were trapped by the God-trapping array, unable to leave. The people in the era could rely on Zhou Wu, who had transcended, to achieve the result they wanted. Even if there were hidden experts in this era, they had provided Zhou Wu with corresponding assistance. No matter how one looked at it, Era's situation was extremely perilous. At the very least, the Freedom Divine King could not see any way for them to reverse the situation. To be honest, the sorcerer race would turn out in full force to attack the Outerium god race. This was something that he had not expected. The fact that the Demon Emperor Dongwang and the others could think of this made the Freedom God King admire their wisdom. This sudden incident had already caused him to view the Shaman tribe and the Eastern Emperor Tai in a new light. But if they still wanted to use this method to make him think too much, and thus ruin his well-laid plan. Swipe? That seemed a little stupid. Do you think the Magi can break through the foreign realm's celestial race? The Freedom Divine King asked as he sat on the chessboard. No. Demon Emperor Dongwang answered sincerely, of the 4 great godly monarchs of the divine race, 2 have come to this epoch. The 2 god kings of destruction left in the clan were sealed in the divine sea, but there was still 1 god king in the clan who was on standby. What's more, the outer realm god race had many experts, and there were even divine emperors. No matter what the sorcerer clan does, it's impossible for them to break through the foreign realm god clan. Your mind is very clear. The Freedom God King said, however, they will at least cause the Outerium celestial race some trouble. But it will only be a little trouble. They can easily deal with the sorcerer race. There's no need for me to return to the celestial race. I don't understand your reason for doing this. As I said, this is only one of the reasons, said the Eastern Emperor. Even at a time like this, you still can't be honest with me? God King of Freedom said with a wry smile. I have always been very honest, but since you don't believe me, there's nothing I can do about it. Demon Larch Dongwang said, I've said everything I need to say. It's up to you whether you believe me or not. However, I suggest that you return your divine will to your body right now. Otherwise, it might be too late. Demon Larch Dongwang's tone was truly sincere. If anyone else heard his sincerity, they might actually consider his words carefully. However, the one standing here was the Freedom God King. He simply didn't believe him. He didn't believe that Dongwang Tai had a backup plan. Even if it really was as he said, that there was a backup plan, the Freedom God King wasn't afraid. In the face of absolute power, any tricks would pale in comparison. He was a majestic God King. He feared no provocation. Then I'll wait and see. Since you've been so honest with me, I'll tell you a piece of news. Your master of the stars might soon return to heaven and earth. Is that so? I don't think so. After Guli broke the seal, the aura he released left everyone dumbfounded. Although he was only half-step into the transcendent realm, in the eyes of Xiao Yumei and Su Yen, he was already at an extremely high level. If he really went all out, he might actually be able to buy an hour. It was this hopeful scene that disappeared in an instant. Gu Li's hairband returned to its original position. The surging aura that could change the color of heaven and earth instantly vanished. Only a black-robed man of unknown identity appeared by his side and gently patted him on the shoulder. There's no need to use a butcher's knife to kill a chicken. The Emperor Star's starlight is extremely important. It's best not to use it carelessly. No one knows what other unexpected events might occur in the future. The Emperor Star's abundant starlight is also our greatest trump card against future variables. As for Zhou Wu, he's only blocking him for an hour. Just leave it to me. The black-robed man's voice was low, but everyone heard him clearly. The first part of his words confused them, but the second part. It was only an hour. His tone was as relaxed as if he were drinking water. Only one thought crossed everyone's minds. Who is it? The one standing in the sky was the transcendent realm Zhou Wu. Even the three ancient race powerhouses wouldn't dare speak as casually as he did. Everyone thought this person was crazy. Guli was even more certain that this person didn't know about Zhou Wu's transcendence. Zhou Wu transcended, said the black-robed man. I know. He's just a lucky bastard who hasn't fully comprehended the laws of heaven and earth yet. You can't say that. Given his method of transcendence, it doesn't seem like he'll be able to comprehend the laws of heaven and earth. The black-robed man smiled mockingly. Guli couldn't help but knit his brows. Unable to comprehend the laws of heaven and earth? Did you not notice? He's never used any Taoist technique. He's only been using brute force. This is the simplest spiritual technique, isn't it? This. Guli was speechless. In truth, Zhou Wu hadn't used any Taoist techniques against them. But who cared? No one had truly transcended. Guli and the others naturally didn't know what a transcendent realm cultivator was capable of. Perhaps Zhou Wu simply felt that brute force was enough to shake this era. Perhaps he disdained using Taoist technique. He has his reasons for not using Taoist technique. What kind of realm is transcendence? Any Taoist technique is enough to destroy heaven and earth. If you want to destroy this era, using Taoist techniques is the simplest and most effective method. But why isn't he using them? Because he can't. Chapter 1798. Rustle. The wind blew between the black-robed man and Zhou Wu, stirring up a cloud of dust. The black-robed man's words rang in everyone's ears as they glanced vaguely at Zhou Wu. Sacrificing his soul. If Zhou Wu had really sacrificed his soul, how could he maintain his self-awareness and stand here? Shouldn't people who had lost their souls be like walking corpses? The resurrected ones were the best example. Everything they did was to complete the mission Zhou Wu had given them. You, up in the void, Zhou Wu frowned deeply. No one should know about the soul sacrifice. Did I hit the nail on the head? You must be shocked. The black-robed man laughed. From the corners of his mouth, one could tell how much he was joking. Standing on the ground, he stretched back and forth, completely ignoring the gloomy expression on Zhou Wu's face that looked like it was about to drip water. If you don't want people to know, don't do it. So many people know that you colluded with the outer world god. What's so surprising about sacrificing your soul to obtain transcendence? You should know that there are others out there, right? You come from the Buddhist domain. The Buddhist domain's Western paradise. Zhou Wu could only think of this mysterious power, and only they would know about the matter of him sacrificing his soul. Does the Buddhist domain want to interfere? The Buddhist domain values equality. Isn't it normal that they can't stand watching you slaughter them? But I'm not from the Buddhist domain. Perhaps the Buddhist ancestors are on their way to redeem you. Then who are you? Me. The black-robed man twisted his neck and stepped forward. Supreme, celestial, ruler, emperor, sovereign, half-step transcendence. When he took the first 7 steps, he had reached the limit of the myriad races. The spiritual pressure he released caused the city to collapse a second time. The earth cracked for thousands of miles. "Ah, Master won't blame me, right?" The black-robed man scratched his head and muttered to himself. Suddenly, he tore off the black robe on his body, revealing a tough face covered in stubble. The black-robed man gently rested on his finger, and was swept far away by the surrounding spiritual energy storm. Only now did he smile with his eyes squinted. "I am the first disciple of Star Lord Yi." The black-robed man smiled. Suddenly, a set of dazzling armor appeared on his body, and a long saber appeared in his hand. "His name is Wu Di." Bang! With a swing of his long saber, the crack beneath his feet was split into a bottomless abyss by the airflow of the saber. At the same time, he said arrogantly, "Invincible. Interesting, really interesting." Inside the chessboard, the Liberty Divine King clenched his fists tightly, gritted his teeth, and laughed sinisterly. He kept nodding as though he was affirming someone. The divine power in his body was unusually violent as it rampaged around the chessboard. He had never thought that attacking the new era was a foolproof plan. Plans could never keep up with changes. He believed that Ji Yuan would have a corresponding countermeasure. However, there were simply too many unforeseen circumstances. When the sorcerer race attacked the Outer Realm God race, he said that he was not worried that the Outer Realm God race would fall. Of course he was not afraid. With a divine king and a divine emperor present, even 2 witch clans would not be able to take down the God race. In truth, he was worried that his southern God race would be destroyed. He'd mobilized all of the southern God race's elites to attack the new era. The only ones left were ordinary true gods. If the sorcerer race attacked, those ordinary true gods might not be their match. He didn't believe that anyone would be kind enough to defend the southern god race for him. The southern god race was a paradise of freedom that he'd spent his entire life building. Even destroying a single blade of grass or tree would cause his heart to bleed. In order not to show it in front of the Yao Emperor, he deliberately pretended not to care. All he had to do was wait for Zhou Wu to erase Ji Yuan's hopes of transcending. Then, he could mobilize his divine will and send his army back to defend against the enemy. But what was Zhou Wu doing? He'd slowly pretended to be transcendent, but in the end, he'd pretended to be a half-step transcendent uninvited guest. Wu Di. He'd never heard of such a person in the new era. Zhou Wu, a half-step transcendent and a transcendent, naturally couldn't win. But he could at least delay Zhou Wu for a while. Even if he lost, there was still Gu Li. The 2 of them might really be able to buy him some time. He wasn't worried about Yi Zichen's final outcome. 2 half-step transcendent cultivators were strong, but there was a qualitative difference between the transcendent realm and the half-step transcendent realm. It was impossible for Yi Zichen to last an hour, but wasting time like this would ruin his paradise of freedom. He desperately wanted to go back, but so long as he mobilized even the slightest bit of divine will, his chessboard would completely collapse. He couldn't retreat. Good. This is too good. The Freedom God King roared in anger. He paced back and forth across the chessboard. It was obvious how anxious he was. A friendly reminder: you still have a chance to retreat. If you wait a bit longer. Shut up. Rumble. A bolt of lightning struck the chessboard. Although it didn't affect the golden chessboard in any way, it was clear that the Freedom God King was so furious he couldn't control his emotions. You want to mess with my mind? Don't even think about it. He's just a half-step transcendent. Do you really think he can save your era's Master of the Stars? In the end, the Master of the Stars' soul will be destroyed, and your era will be defeated again. You remnant of the second era will also be buried in this destruction. I'm just reminding you out of goodwill. Why are you so angry? Monster Emperor Dongwang said. No matter how you struggle, you can't escape the fate of destruction. The Freedom God King's expression was ferocious. Monster Emperor Dongwang, who was hidden in the chessboard, didn't argue with him. Is that so? But there's something I'm not clear about. The wizard race you mentioned won't affect your outer realm celestial race at all. No, it can only cause some small trouble. But the result doesn't seem to be as simple as small trouble. You should have received the God Emperor's recall order, right? The anger between the Freedom God King's brows intensified. Just as Monster Emperor Dongwang had said, he had indeed received the God Emperor's recall order. The Joy God King had also received the same news. Not long ago, he was discussing this matter with another wisp of his divine will. This was also the main cause of his anger. He didn't expect that the small wizard race could actually make their outer realm celestial race feel pressured. It was also the God Emperor's recall that made him even more worried about his southern god race's paradise. But he didn't want to retreat, and he couldn't. He had to personally witness the death of the era's Star Master before he could retreat with peace of mind. Otherwise, everything he had done would be in vain. Chapter 1799. The Outer Realm Divine Race. The witch race's attack wasn't secretive. It was rather grand. Their goal was simple. They wanted to attack the Outer Realm Divine Race and force Freedom Divine King and Pleasure Divine King to retreat. If they really attacked the Outer Realm Divine Race, the witch race alone wouldn't be able to take them down. These Yuan Breaker beasts don't look small. I wonder what they ate to grow up. The Lich King beside Dijiang couldn't help but lick his lips as he watched the Yuan Breaker beasts swarm outside the divine race. His occupation was a corpse refiner, and his hobby was to refine puppet. His favorite was to refine puppets of this size. To him, the realm of the dead wasn't important. Just the size was enough. The Yuan Breaker beasts of the Outer Realm Divine Race were the perfect targets for him to refine. He'd come to the Outer Realm Divine Race a few times and wandered around the outskirts for a long time. He wanted to find a chance to kill an Yuan Breaker beast and refine it into his puppet. However, the Outer Realm Divine Race kept a close eye on the Yuan Breaker beasts. There were always breeders around, so he couldn't kill them. Be careful when you deal with them later. These guys are my treasures. The Lich King muttered beside Dijiang. They're all yours. The Lich King was delighted. Thinking that these Yuan Breaker beasts would be his puppets in the future, excitement flowed uncontrollably from his eyes. Something wasn't right. He didn't come here to refine puppets. Hey, didn't you say that I could revive brother-in-law if I came with you? The Lich King shouted. Just wait here. As long as you don't run, the 5 Elements' Great Emperor will naturally revive. Dijiang looked around as soon as he finished speaking. Of the 4 god tribes of the north, south, east, and west, 3 of the 12 grand sorcerer ancestors could attack in the same direction. Dijiang was in the east. The Candle Dragon and Xian Ming were with him. The 3 shamans looked at each other and nodded. They completely ignored the nagging Lich King behind them. Advance! Accompanied by a loud shout, the deep and distant sound of a bugle horn rang out. Then, beside the 3 great ancestral sorcerers, countless warriors of the sorcerer clan passed by them. Countless warriors of the God clan also appeared at the border of the Eastern God clan, driving the origin-breaking beasts through the air. The roar was incessant, and the clashing of blades lingered in everyone's ears. They really fought. The Lich King shrunk his neck and looked ahead. Although he was a corpse refiner, he was more timid than anyone else. 90% of the reason why he was able to refine corpses to the level of Lich King was because of the resources provided by the wizard tribe, and the other part was because he had found death grounds outside. So far, the number of people he had personally killed seemed to be 0. Such a grand battle dazzled him. He trembled in fear at the courage of the wizard tribe and was even more worried about the counterattack of the Outer Realm God tribe. However, it didn't take long for that worry to be tossed beyond the highest heavens. Death Chi. Surging Death Chi. I'll suck. The Lich King, who was shuttling through the battlefield, crazily absorbed the Death Chi. Although the battle hadn't even lasted for 100 breaths, the number of casualties was already in the tens of thousands. This kind of fresh Death Chi was the perfect nourishment for the Lich King, who was a corpse refiner. Moreover, he was the only corpse refiner in the battlefield, so he didn't need to worry that someone would fight with him. The Lich King was even more satisfied with absorbing the Death Chi. As the pure Death Chi entered his body, the Lich King's injuries took a turn for the better. His broken limbs were also reborn with the influx of Death Chi. Awesome! Too awesome! They're all mine. I want to see who dares to fight with me. The Lich King, who was shuttling through the battlefield, laughed wantonly. The excitement in his eyes was almost maniacal. He had been very careful in the beginning, worried that the Outer Realm God tribe would hurt him. But now, the Lich King didn't care about the existence of the Outer Realm God tribe's experts. He devoured the Death Chi and shattered souls of his comrades in front of them. His behavior was completely trampling on the dead. No matter where it was, the dead were the most important. Their souls couldn't rest in peace after they died in battle, and they even became nourishment for the corpse refiner. Such behavior was also very disrespectful to the Outer Realm God tribe. Some of the deceased's friends, or comrades that they had only nodded to, were enraged when they saw the Lich King's behavior. When they saw the Lich King's actions, they were furious. Ignoring the pursuit of the other experts of the sorcerer tribe, they turned around and charged at the Lich King. The Lich King, who was devouring the Death Chi, narrowed his eyes. In an instant, a disdainful smile flashed across his lips. You all deserve to die for disturbing this seat's feast. Suddenly, the Lich King's face turned ashen. His hands turned into sharp claws and clawed at the heads of the Outer Realm God tribe experts. He, who had devoured countless Death Chi, was no longer comparable to those Outer Realm God tribe experts. His hands that had turned into sharp claws landed on the heads of the Outer Realm God tribe experts without any obstruction. The long and slender nails were sharp and pointed. They pierced through the Outer Realm God tribe experts' skin, causing blood to flow from their heads. Golden blood flowed from their heads. As long as he wanted to, he could penetrate the skulls of the Outer Realm God tribe experts with just a little bit of force. All of you, go! The ferocious-looking Lich King smiled evilly and his claws became sharper. Just as his nails were about to pierce through the skulls of the Outer Realm God tribe experts, his eyes suddenly became clear. The extraterritorial god in his hand was forcefully pushed back, and he could not help but take a few steps back. What was I doing just now? The Lich King stared at his hands that were stained with golden blood, and he muttered in shock. Just now, he almost killed someone. Not bad, lad. You actually managed to control your emotions at the last moment. I will have to look up to you in the future. At this moment, the Candle Dragon suddenly appeared beside the Lich King and patted his shoulder. The Lich King turned his head and saw the two great ancestors of Sorcerer, Emperor Jiang and Xianming, standing beside him. Judging from the emotions in their eyes, they seemed to be very satisfied with him. What happened to me just now? Why did I have such a terrifying thought? The Lich King's eyes were filled with confusion. Emperor Jiang smiled and nodded. Of course, not only you, but the other warriors of the Sorcerer tribe also became like you. It's just that you broke free from the control of your emotions, but they didn't. Someone is amplifying your emotions in the dark, causing your actions to become extreme. We sensed it from the beginning. We didn't warn you because we wanted to see how far you would go. I didn't expect you to break free from the control of your emotions. It seems like you're not useless after all. Not bad, Emperor Jiang praised. The Lich King touched his chin angrily. He would never tell these guys that he was actually afraid of killing people, which was why he was lucky enough to break free from the control of his emotions. It was good to let these guys misunderstand so that they wouldn't keep saying that he was useless. The Lich King snorted with his nose in the air as pride flashed across his face. It's good that you know. You haven't seen how powerful I am. This is just a drizzle. But about the control of emotions you mentioned just now, is there anyone who can control other people's emotions? Of course there is. Chapter 1800. Emotion Divine King. Under destruction, Divine King Yale was an emotion master god. He had a way to control emotions. However, Dejiang could only think of the East god race's Divine King Orbis for such a large-scale emotional manipulation. You witches really know a lot about the god race. A handsome man with blonde hair and a western face suddenly appeared in the void. Behind him, there was a spirit array drawn by the Tulip family, following behind him like a cloak. He was the East god race's Divine King, the emotion Divine King who controlled the emotions of all beings. Divine King, Orbis. The witch race has always been neutral. Why are you suddenly interested in the god race? Could it be that Yale, Stark, and Em have provoked you? Then you can go and find trouble with them. Orbis spread his hands, helplessness on his face. They have people over there too. The situation should be much worse than here, Dejiang smiled. Although he was smiling, he didn't dare to relax his concentration. Among the 4 divine kings, Orbis of the East god race was ranked last. Even so, no god capital could be underestimated. Plus, Orbis was not good at fighting. His ability to control emotions was no less destructive than Yale's destruction Great Tao in a large-scale battle like this. Looks like this is a premeditated invasion. Orbis nodded. Do you want to take advantage of Stack and Em being away and Yale's deity Ocean being sealed to take advantage of the god race? We do have such thoughts. Dejiang nodded. Then I can only say this is a stupid decision. Orbis landed from the void and stood 10 meters in front of Dejiang. The expressions of the Candle Dragon and Xian Ming turned cold, while the Lich King hid behind the ancestral wizards out of fear. Divine King. This was a divine king. Lich King never dreamed that he would be so close to a divine king of the god race, especially when they were on opposite sides. He kept muttering as he hunched his body. However, his muttering was too fragmented. One could only tell from his intermittent voice that he seemed to be praying for blessings. The little kid behind you seems nervous. Orbis pointed at the Lich King. Young man, you haven't seen much of the world. You might have been frightened by your God King Aura. Dejiang maintained his smile and looked at God King Orbis. Why did you say that our decision was foolish? In my opinion, this is already the weakest point of the god race. Of course you're right. Orbis ignored the Lich King and nodded at Dejiang with a smile. If I miss this opportunity, it's almost impossible for me to encounter such an opportunity again. However, you are mistaken about one thing. The East God clan has no interest in destroying an era. Stark and Yale contacted me before, but I rejected both of them. You've brought trouble upon yourselves by invading the Eastern God clan. Troublesome. If the other Protoss were attacked, wouldn't you come to their aid? What does their life and death have to do with me? Orbis let out a cold laugh. From his expression, it could be seen that he really wasn't interested in the lives of the other gods. Then I'm really sorry for offending you. Can we leave now? Dejiang said. Of course not. You attacked the East God clan and caused heavy casualties to my people. As the God King of the East God clan, how can I let you leave? You can only blame yourselves for not doing your homework and understanding the internal relationships of the god race. Even though you were forced to attack, I can only apologize to you. I'm sorry, but all of you will have to stay here. His words were a sentence for Dejiang and the East God clan sorcerer race warriors. The most terrifying thing was that Orbis still said such cruel words with a smile. His tone was cold, as though he had no emotions at all. The muttering Lich King was stunned. If he didn't hear wrong, the emotional God King seemed to have said that all of them would stay here. All of them? Including him? No. He hadn't taken a wife in his entire life. He hadn't left a son or daughter for the Fox clan to carry on the family line. He hadn't lived enough, he didn't want to die. Dijiang, the Lich King carefully tugged on the corner of Dijiang's clothes. Candle Dragon and Xianming felt embarrassed. This little friend, ignore him. Dijiang was still smiling. He waved his hand forcefully and knocked the Lich King's hand away. What you said just now, can we understand that you want to declare war on us? No, no, no. You are declaring war on me. It's the same. Dijiang sighed. It's the fault of the sorcerer race for not understanding the internal situation of the god race in advance. I feel sorry for accidentally injuring your Eastern God clan and forcing you to stand on the opposite side of us. Some mistakes have to be borne, Orbis said. Of course we know that. Dijiang nodded. Actually, I feel sorry for you too. One wrong decision and you have to pay such a heavy price. No way. Dijiang pointed at the sorcerer race warriors fighting in the East God clan. From start to finish, our sorcerer race didn't lose any members. It's you who suffered heavy losses. What I said just now was a pity for your Eastern God clan. Actually, you could have let us go, but you refused. That caused the East God clan to suffer heavy losses. Orbis's gaze focused on the battlefield. The sorcerer race and the East God clan were clashing. In terms of combat power and realm, the East God clan was definitely above the sorcerer race. But what shocked him was, the sorcerer race didn't die. He saw with his own eyes a East God clan god chop off a sorcerer race warrior's head with a blade. But then that sorcerer race warrior bent down, picked up the head, and put it back on his neck. Undead. How could he not die? Actually, there's something else I want to tell you. It's not that we don't know much about the god race, but we know too much. You said you weren't interested in conquering the era, so why did you provide the Freedom Divine King and the others with 200,000 soldiers? As for why you didn't follow, it's because you're interested in the god race. If we didn't act, would you be preparing to rebel? You, Orbis stretched out his hand. Dijiang's smile faded as he snorted. Compared to Stark, Yale, and Thimu, your indifference makes us shudder. How could we let you continue like this, don't you think? Suddenly, Dijiang reached into his robes. Chapter 1801. Revive the Five Elements Great Emperor. The Lich King stared blankly at the 5 scrolls in his hands. He'd given up his peaceful life and revealed himself as a corpse refiner. He'd dealt with the disgusting miasma of death and shouldered his sister's hatred all for this moment. He'd resurrect the 5 Elements Great Emperor and see his sister's smile once more. He'd show her that he wasn't as useless as she'd imagined. The Lich King's hands trembled violently. His emotions. Suddenly, the Lich King's eyes regained their clarity. His back was drenched in sweat. Just now, he'd fallen into the emotional God King's trap once more. He subconsciously glanced at Obi's. When he saw his smiling face, the Lich King's heart filled with dread. This guy was too terrifying. The Lich King calmed himself down and didn't dare reveal even the slightest hint of emotion. He deliberately maintained his composure and avoided eye contact with the emotional God King. What do I need to do? The question was directed at Dijiang. Dijiang had brought the Lich King back to the shamans and told him he could resurrect the 5 Elements Great Emperor. He'd never doubted this at all and followed Dijiang's instructions. He'd refined corpses, condensed discarnate souls, and refined puppets. He didn't know why he'd done all this. All he needed to know was that he could resurrect the 5 Elements Great Emperor. Even now, he still didn't know the true method of resurrecting the 5 Elements Great Emperor. When he'd tossed the scrolls into his hands, he'd been completely clueless about how to do it. Discarnate souls. You should be able to sense them, right? Said Dijiang sternly. Discarnate souls? The Lich King was an expert in searching for discarnate souls. Finding a body was only one step in refining a puppet. If he wanted to make it truly sentient, he'd need to condense a discarnate soul inside. After refining puppets for so many years, he was especially sensitive to the existence of discarnate souls. He did not sense the existence of any remnant souls in these paintings. But since Dijiang had said so much, he couldn't possibly be toying with him. "Kid, how did you?" Dijiang was about to speak when the Lich King's eyes suddenly lit up. "I know." With that, the Lich King took a few steps back. "Give me some time. Don't worry, we can definitely buy you enough time. However, you should know that even if we can fight for you in the current situation, I will do it as soon as possible." Holding the scroll, the Lich King sat cross-legged in the void without a word. Looking at his rare resolute expression, Dijiang couldn't help but be taken aback, a rare smile appearing in his eyes. This kid was actually not as useless as they thought. Emperor Jiang, the Candle Dragon, and Xian Ming looked at each other and surrounded the emotional Divine King in a triangle. "You want to fight me?" Orbis looked around, but his gaze was always hidden in the Lich King's direction. Even though he didn't know who the Five Elements' great emperor they were talking about was, he had a vague feeling that reviving that person would be detrimental to him and the Outerium god race. "It would be best if everything is fine. The decision is in your hands," Dijiang said. "Before that, can you tell me why the shamans won't die? Just what kind of secret art was this?" "This kind of secret art was taught in every epic. If all your epics know this secret art, then I will consider discussing with the other divine kings to give up on destroying your epic. I will also give you satisfactory compensation. People wouldn't die." This situation really shocked the emotional divine king. Even they, the divine kings, would die if they encountered a fatal injury. At most, they could use their realm to stay alive a little longer. The shamans wouldn't die at all. No matter where they were injured, even if their chests were pierced or their heads chopped off, they could still be active on the battlefield. In less than 15 minutes, the East God race suffered heavy casualties, but the shamans didn't suffer any. If the entire epic knew this secret art, it would be a joke for the Outerium god race to attack the epic. If they didn't stop now, the Outerium god race might be the ones to be destroyed, much less attack the epic. Then, emotional divine king, you should summon the other divine kings as soon as possible. Dijiang didn't respond directly. It seems that only the shamans know this. Actually, from Dijiang's literal meaning, he wanted to say that the entire epic knew this secret art. Orbis had also mentioned discussing it with the other divine kings, which was why he said that. Yet, the emotional god monarch did the exact opposite and came to a different conclusion from it. Even if it's only the shamans, this is too terrifying. This goes against the laws of heaven and earth and fate. Didn't the master of the laws find you for your actions? Emotional divine king, don't put labels on us. How did we go against the laws? That doesn't count. Orbis pointed, and a shaman expert's head was chopped off in the direction he pointed. The shaman expert still bent over like nothing had happened, then put his head back on. The surrounding celestial race experts were stunned. The witch race experts also took this opportunity to deal with the celestial race expert. "I can only tell you that we didn't go against the laws of heaven and earth," Dijiang said with a smile. "Can you tell me a thing or two? I'm really interested in this. There's a divine artifact in the epic called the Book of Life and Death. That's all I can tell you. If I continue, I'll become a traitor of the epic. The Book of Life and Death." It wasn't as if the Outerverse didn't have famous divine artifacts, such as the Xianyuan sword, the Compass of Fate, and the Celestial God chessboard. The Outerverse all knew about them. This was the first time Orbis had heard of the Book of Life and Death, but he deeply memorized the name of this divine artifact in his heart. "After telling you so much, I wonder if the emotional divine king will be magnanimous and let us just stay here quietly?" Dijiang smiled. "If you're willing to tell me more about the Book of Life and Death, I might be willing to chat with you a bit more." Orbis's eyes spun. "Sorry." An apologetic look flashed through Dijiang's eyes, but Orbis didn't mind. He just shrugged in disappointment. What a pity. Since you're not willing to talk, we can only use rough methods to solve all this. Right? Are the three of you immortal as well? Of course not. Dijiang said honestly. Thank you for your honesty. Orbis praised Dijiang's honesty, then his gaze darkened. Then why do you think the three of you can stop me? Ha, this time, it wasn't just Dijiang. The Candle Dragon and Xian Ming laughed as well. Chapter 1802. There was no doubt that there were no remnant souls in the paintings. The Lich King was an expert in this field. If he couldn't sense the existence of a remnant soul from the paintings, it meant that there was no such thing. However, he'd made it clear just now. He sat down cross-legged, holding the paintings. It wasn't that he'd sensed the existence of a remnant soul, but that he'd thought of something important. His brother-in-law was the Five Elements' great emperor. It wasn't hard to sense the power of the five elements swirling around the five paintings. When the Five Elements' great emperor was alive, he'd used the power of the five elements to its fullest extent. His soul had even fused with it. After he died, his Tao heart of the five elements dissipated. From then on, the great Tao of the five elements was filled with thorns. If he wasn't wrong, the power of the five elements in the five paintings was where the Five Elements' great emperor's soul resided. He unfurled the five paintings. They floated in midair. The moment the painting that contained the power of the five elements unfurled, the power of the five elements gushed out. Scorching fire, gentle water, howling wind, violent thunder, and mysterious lightning. The five elements complemented each other. The Lich King also closed his eyes at this moment and used his heart to feel. Reviving the Five Elements' great emperor was completely different from condensing remnant souls to refine into puppet. There were no remnant souls in these five picture scrolls, so he needed to separate and reassemble the souls that might have been integrated into the power of the five elements. This required an extremely high degree of concentration, which was incomparable to the carelessness he had when refining the puppets. Moreover, the Lich King didn't just want to revive the Five Elements' great emperor, but also his brother-in-law. With this kind of connection, he had to be even more careful when he carried out the resurrection. He had to make sure he was in peak condition before he could begin the next step. However, Emperor Jiang had also told him that he didn't have much time left. Focus. After the Lich King closed his eyes for a few breaths, his mind was completely immersed in the power of the five elements in the five paintings. He knew nothing about the power of the five elements, and he used the aura of death from refining corpses as nourishment. Compared to the power of the five elements, he was one righteous, one evil. The tyrannical power of the five elements heavily injured the five elements' great emperor's soul, making it difficult to find the five elements' great emperor's soul fragment. He couldn't help but frown at the pain brought by the raging fire and lightning in his soul. In just a few short breaths of time, the intense pain made the Lich King want to retreat. I can't retreat. He had persevered for so long just for this moment. He would never forget the pained expressions on Su Qinyan and Su Wan's faces when they learned of the Five Elements' great emperor's death. He couldn't forget how Su Qinyan had knelt outside the river Styx for 3 whole years, begging Emperor Hades to revive the Five Elements' great emperor from the river of time. From then on, he vowed to make his 2 sisters smile again. He'd given up on a life of comfort. He'd shouldered far too much. It hadn't been easy for him to wait for Dijiang's confirmation that he could revive the Five Elements' great emperor. How could he give up just like that? The Lich King could almost hear the Lich King's wails as the flames burned his soul. This kind of pain was completely linked to the Lich King's body and mind. The pain from his soul caused his entire body to be bathed in cold sweat. He was about to collapse. No one could understand the pain he was going through. Right now, the only thing he could hold on to was his 2 sisters. But even if he couldn't bear it, he couldn't hold on any longer. Even if he could endure it, his soul had already begun to think of retreating. He didn't want to explore the 5 elements any further. Even if the Lich King forced him to, he didn't want to go any deeper. Brother-in-law, my sisters are all waiting for you to return. Have you forgotten your promise to them all those years ago? On the verge of collapse, the Lich King's soul roared. The 5 elements' energy he'd fused with him trembled violently. Suddenly, the burning pain in his soul dissipated. When his soul opened its eyes, it found itself in a landscape of mountains and rivers. Green hills, clear waters, a cool breeze, and a blazing sun. A skiff drifted over from the distant sea. As his soul floated in the air, the Lich King saw an old man in a straw raincoat standing on the skiff. The old man held a bamboo pole in his hand and pushed the skiff until it reached the center of the sea. Then, he vanished. Before long, the skiff's curtains were lifted, and a middle-aged man with bright, starry eyes stepped out. His eyes were filled with the vicissitudes of life, but his lips were curved into a smile. "Su-hai, it's been so many years. You've grown so tall." The man on the skiff smiled lovingly. Up in the sky, the Lich King's suppressed emotions erupted. However, as a soul, he couldn't cry. In his true form, he would have burst into tears long ago. Brother-in-law. As soon as the Lich King called him brother-in-law, the middle-aged man's identity was obvious. The 5 elements' great emperor. The man-god Emperor Zhou Wu had schemed against, robbed of his starlight, and usurped his celestial fate. He'd returned. I never would have guessed Dijiang and the others would choose you. It's been hard on you all these years. Do Qinyan and Wan know? The Lich King shook his head vigorously. The era didn't approve of corpse refiners. If he told Su Qinyan his true identity, and told her that he'd done everything to revive the 5 elements' great emperor, she'd undoubtedly declare war on the entire era. He wouldn't do that. He'd rather shoulder everything on his own and have Su Qinyan hate him than say it. Come out. You must have been wronged. I remember when I left the Fox clan, you were just a spoiled brat. Now, in the blink of an eye, you've become a man who can take charge of everything. He gently patted the Lich King's shoulder, causing his soul to tremble violently. After a while, the 5 elements' great emperor looked at the Lich King with mixed emotions. How are your sisters doing? How could they be doing? You left without a word. Big sister Qinyan was about to go crazy. It's my fault. The 5 elements' great emperor smiled sadly. He didn't need the Lich King to explain. He could imagine Su Qingyan's situation. The 5 elements' great emperor smiled bitterly and shook his head. Let's not talk about that. Since you're here, Dijiang and the others must have run into some trouble. The Lich King's expression grew solemn. That's right. The epoch is under attack by the outsiders. Dijiang led the shamans here to save the epoch. However, the outsiders still have god kings and god emperors. Although the shamans' attack was effective, the epoch's god kings have no intention of retreating. So he wants me to go out and wreak havoc? The 5 elements' great emperor smiled, then arched his brows at the Lich King. Where's the body that my soul resides in? This. The Lich King froze. Dijiang hadn't told him where his soul resided. Chapter 1803. Emotional Tremor. Emotional godly King Orbis had a serious expression. He could control the emotions of billions of living beings with a wave of his hand. When he used it on a fixed person, the effect was many times stronger. However, as Dijiang said, no matter how the emotional godly king unleashed his emotional tremor, they were not affected at all. They really didn't have any emotions. You better not waste your divine power on us. Even if you use up all the divine power in your godheads, we have no emotions at all. How can you be effective? Dijiang and the other grand shamans were still unaffected. Then, I suggest you give up. Before the emotional godly king could finish, Dijiang replied expressionlessly, Our clansmen can't die either. So what if you attack them? The emotional godly king was indifferent. The current situation was definitely not what he wanted to see. The grand shamans had no emotions, so he could not use all his abilities. Shamans were immortal, so no matter how he manipulated their emotions, he could not affect them. How much longer does Su Hai need? Xian Ming narrowed his eyes and looked at the Lich King. Di Jiang and the Candle Dragon were calculating the time. Wait a little longer. Di Jiang, can he really revive the 5 elements, Great Emperor? The Candle Dragon was hesitant. We can't say for sure now. Given the current situation, we can only assume that he can. Di Jiang looked deeply into the Lich King's eyes. In truth, he wasn't confident that the Lich King would be able to resurrect the 5 elements, Great Emperor. The Lich King had been dealing with the soul fragments, but if he wanted to revive the 5 elements, Great Emperor, he had to enter the 5 elements, Great Tao he left behind. Flames burned, heavenly lightning baptized. Normal people would find it hard to endure such pain. If he did not have absolute faith, he was worried that the Lich King would give up halfway. Moreover, they were not as relaxed facing the emotional godly king as they appeared to be. If the Lich King failed, the Grand Shaman's operation would be a complete failure. You're waiting for me? At this moment, the Lich King suddenly opened his eyes. A heat wave that seemed like it was going to melt the heavens and the earth suddenly appeared in the void of the Eastern God clan. It turned into tangible heat ripples that vibrated in the void, and the entire Eastern God clan seemed to have become a scorching furnace. The emotional godly king had a solemn look on his face as he looked at the Lich King. He still had the face of that young man, but his aura had changed drastically. The former had the face of an unscrupulous nobody, but right now, he had the might of an emperor that could make the heavens and earth submit to him with a wave of his hand. Su Hai, this boy really doesn't disappoint people. Xian Ming laughed loudly. Candle Juin also showed a relieved smile. Emperor Zhang's tense nerves also relaxed at this moment. It was over. Everything was over. The ancestral wizards were well aware of the identity of the person who had appeared before them. It was also because of his appearance that they all knew that everything was over. Why did you use his body to come out? Di Jiang asked. Isn't this your arrangement? The Lich King was stunned. Di Jiang couldn't help but be stunned by this question as well. He slapped his forehead. Sorry, I forgot to have him bring you a host body. But this boy's body can actually contain both of your souls. It seems like he really is the most suitable candidate to resurrect you. A suitable candidate. Of course my judgment is right. The Lich King's main body, which was also inside the Lich King's body, was stunned. Because the 5 elements Great Emperor's soul was in control, he couldn't speak. But the 5 elements Great Emperor's words just now shocked him greatly. His judgment is right. Could it be that the person who made him the Lich King was his brother-in-law, the 5 elements Great Emperor? This meant that before he died, the 5 elements Great Emperor had already arranged everything. You seem to be in a terrible situation. The 5 elements Great Emperor laughed softly, then glanced at the emotional godly king. Did you think that if you had come just a bit later, we would have really had an emotional breakdown? Xian Ming couldn't help but rub his temples. It's really hard to pretend to be emotionless. He was scared stiff. The emotional godly king's lips quivered, unable to speak for a long while. Any living creature, be it humans, demonic beasts, even plants or rocks, all living things in the world should have emotions. At the very least, he'd never seen an emotionless creature in all his years of living. However, his emotional tremors didn't achieve the desired effect. Di Jiang had been so confident that he'd really thought the shaman ancestor had no emotions. He hadn't expected it to be all an act. Apologies, emotional godly king. We lied to you. Di Jiang smiled and cupped his hands. How can we shaman ancestor have no emotions? Zhurong is famous for his fiery temper. However, in front of you, we can only pretend to be emotionless and make you think it's futile to manipulate our emotions. We've been able to last this long. There's no need to apologize. This is your wisdom. Emotional godly King Orbis snorted angrily. Di Jiang and the others knew that the emotional godly king was definitely in a bad mood after being tricked, so he didn't say anything else. He wasn't the kind of person who liked to make fun of people's weaknesses. In fact, if he could, he'd rather have a fair fight with the emotional godly king. Alas, he knew very well that he wasn't the emotional godly king's match, and the current situation didn't allow for heroism. Nodding apologetically again, Di Jiang, the Candle Dragon, and Xian Ming dispersed their encirclement around the emotional godly king. Their mission was over, so it was time for them to move on to what came next. I'll leave this to you, 5 elements. The 5 elements' great emperor smiled and nodded, watching Di Jiang and the other shaman ancestors leave. It's been a long time since I've exercised. They didn't even warm up before throwing me a godly king. These guys are really. After watching them disappear from his sight, the 5 elements' great emperor withdrew his gaze and muttered to himself. They trust you a lot. The emotional godly king suddenly broke the silence. You could say that. It's my fault for having such a trustworthy face. The 5 elements' great emperor laughed self-deprecatingly. However, I'd rather they didn't trust me right now. What do you mean? You're a godly king. I haven't exercised in tens of thousands of years. My body is rusty. You've left such a powerful opponent for me right off the bat. Are you afraid? No. The 5 elements' great emperor shook his finger lightly, excitement flowing uncontrollably from his eyes. I'm really excited. I feel like all the blood in my body is on fire. As soon as he finished speaking, the 5 elements' great emperor's gaze turned cold. He snapped his fingers at the air. Suddenly, countless fireballs exploded in the air, turning into countless heavenly flames that rained down from the sky. Chapter 1804. That's exactly what happened. On the golden chessboard, the voice of Dong Huang, whose whereabouts were unknown, reverberated for a long time. I doubt Zhou Wu would ever have guessed that his seemingly unfathomable actions back then would lead to the transcendence of the 5 elements. A transcendent-level expert wreaked havoc in the outside. Right now, the entire God realm is in a sea of fire. The Freedom God King's expression was as dark as a pool of stagnant water. He'd miscalculated. His meticulous plan hadn't even lasted 6 hours, yet so many unexpected situations had cropped up. He couldn't tolerate his own mistakes. Crack! The crisp sound of bones snapping filled the air. What's the point? The 5 elements' great emperor sighed. Just now, the Freedom God King had broken his left index finger. I just wanted to clear my head. The Freedom God King's expression was apathetic. His broken finger remained twisted. He took a deep breath, his expression no longer sinister. He sat cross-legged on the chessboard. In truth, he was still angry, but more than that, he felt relieved. There was no longer any need to worry about returning to the outside. Even if he did, it was too late. That way, he'd be able to stay in peace and watch the Master of the Stars die. The price was enormous. The southern god paradise he'd spent so much effort on might be destroyed. But that didn't matter. So long as he lived, he'd rebuild it. So long as the Emperor's star died, he could accept these losses. The Emperor's star. You're still far from being able to stop me. Even if I can't use my Tao, you're still like a mantis trying to stop a chariot. The 10th Divine Mountain had been destroyed beyond recognition. The entire mountain was in tatters. Only Yi Zichen's room remained unscathed. Blood dripped uncontrollably from Zhou Wu's blade. He glared viciously ahead. Wu Di clutched his chest as if on the verge of death. His body was already covered with saber scars, and the long sword in his hand was broken. The remaining half of the sword was also bent and no longer as sharp as it used to be. Gu Li stood beside him. In the end, he'd broken his seal. However, he didn't use starlight. Instead, he used pure spiritual power to fight alongside Wu Di. I'll heal them. Su Yen quickly stepped forward and infused her pure life force into their bodies, healing their injuries. Ha, how embarrassing. As expected, I'm not suited to boasting. Wu Di laughed self-deprecatingly. With the influx of life energy, his condition improved slightly. That's enough. Transcendence and half-step transcendence can't even be compared. It's already impressive that we've lasted this long, comforted Guli. It's far from enough, said Wu Di. Guli had waited until Wu Di and Zhou Wu exchanged blows for 100 breaths of time before he sensed that Wu Di couldn't withstand Zhou Wu's attacks at all. That was why he decided to intervene. However, transcendents were truly too strong. They were so strong that even if the two of them worked together, they still wouldn't be able to gain an hour's time. How about? Guli narrowed his eyes. The instant they met, Wu Di shook his head vigorously. He knew Guli meant to use starlight. Why? Do you know something? Under Guli's gaze, Wu Di hesitated for a moment. Someone told me that I can't let you use starlight. Who is it? Guli knit his brows. Wu Di shook his head, then said, I don't know either, but that person is definitely an expert. His words can't be wrong. An expert? How strong? My level of cultivation. Wu Di pointed at himself. That mysterious expert gave me this, and he only used a strand of his aura. What? Guli was stunned. A strand of aura. After all, Wu Di was a half-step transcendent, second only to the transcendence realm. Even monstrously talented geniuses would need to spend countless years and endless good fortune to be able to step into this realm. Yet Wu Di said that person had only used a strand of aura. How was that possible? I'm telling the truth. Earlier, I was in seclusion in the Divine Time artifact when someone suddenly sent me a friend request. That startled me out of my seclusion. Then I saw someone add me as a friend. Continue, said Guli. I accepted that person's friend request. Then that person told me that my master was in trouble and that I had to go save him. At the same time, he sent me a red packet and told me to swallow it. When I open the red packet, there's a strand of energy inside. Wu Di stared at Guli sternly. If I swallow that strand of energy, I'll become a god. After you reached the half-step transcendence realm, that person asked me to hurry over and help you. He also told me not to let you use the starlight. Red envelope. A wisp of chi. Just who was this person? How could he have such methods? Guli was dumbfounded. Based on what he knew, there was no way he could explain it. Can you let me see who that person is? Of course. As he spoke, Wu Di reached for his phone. However, at that moment, a blade aura descended from the sky. Damn it. Dong. Wu Di and Guli pushed Suyen back. Their spiritual power surged wildly, blocking Zhou Wu's attack. Guli shouted through clenched teeth. They hadn't fully recovered yet, so they coughed up mouthfuls of blood at the same time. If we don't use it now, we won't have another chance. The 5 elements' elemental sprites showed no signs of stopping. It was almost impossible for them to stop Zhou Wu with their crippled bodies. Starlight. This was Guli's final trump card. He didn't know why Wu Di had become a half-step transcendence expert in a single breath. What was the point of not letting him use starlight? However, if he didn't use it now, he might never have another chance. Keep resisting. Aren't you very good at resisting? Zhou Wu roared in fury. Blade light rained down from the sky. Boom, boom, boom. Deafening explosions filled the air. Wu Di and Guli coughed up mouthfuls of blood, their faces drained of all color. You still want to stop me? Seriously? Die. Zhou Wu seemed to have lost interest in talking to them. Perhaps it was because he'd wasted too much time with them. If he delayed any longer, Yi Zichen might succeed in transcending. He couldn't give them any more time. He had to cut the Gordian knot. That's right, just like that. The Freedom God King narrowed his eyes. The way he saw it, Zhou Wu should have done this long ago. Wasting time would only cause more trouble for them. All he had to do was use this blade. Once it landed, everything would be over. He raised his blade, but just as Zhou Wu was about to swing down. "Zhou Wu, do you still want to make more mistakes?" Suddenly, a feminine shout echoed through the sky. This familiar voice caused Zhou Wu to abruptly pull back his blade. He stared blankly at the tearful figure in the sky. It was as if he'd been immobilized. Chapter 1805. A white-robed figure slowly stepped through the air. In a fit of rage, Zhou Wu retracted his hand. He stared at the beautiful woman who was weeping like a pear blossom. When he looked at her, his bloodshot eyes involuntarily became gentler. The divine arbiter! She was the only woman Zhou Wu trusted, the only woman who had left a deep mark on his heart, and the only woman he'd ever truly fallen for. He could make the world his enemy. He could let anyone down. As long as the divine arbiter was by his side, as long as he had her, he didn't need to care. And yet, this woman had betrayed him. "Heh, so you've come." Up in the sky, Zhou Wu's expression was indescribably cold. In truth, he didn't want to. When he transcended, the person he wanted to share his joy with the most was the divine arbiter. It was her deception and concealment that had pushed him into the abyss. It was her. It was all her fault. From that moment on, Zhou Wu felt no attachment to this era. It could be said that he had nothing left to lose. Nothing would get worse. However, she seemed haggard. Her face was pale, and her body was thin. Zhou Wu could not help but wonder what she had experienced during this period of time to have landed her in such a state. No. She only had herself to blame. There was nothing to pity about a woman who played politics. But, no matter what, she'd once been his true love. For a moment, Zhou Wu was stuck between a rock and a hard place. His heart ached for the divine arbiter's haggard appearance, but he also resented her for her betrayal. "Congratulations, you've succeeded." The haggard divine arbiter smiled miserably. Perhaps only she knew what that smile contained. The central divine mountain no longer existed. Not a single one of its inhabitants had survived, including members of the divine clan. When she learned of this, she cried for hours, mourning for her elders, her brothers, her juniors, and all of the divine clan. She cried until she had no more tears to shed. Then, she bowed deeply to the divine clan's former grounds, which were now nothing but ruins. She kowtowed in remembrance of her fallen clansmen, and also for her decision to apologize to them. Even if Zhou Wu had destroyed her entire clan, she was still willing to stand by his side. As for their sins, she was willing to share Zhou Wu's burden. Therefore, she had come. She had guessed that Zhou Wu would definitely come looking for trouble. She was afraid that he would be lonely and did not want him to continue making mistakes. She wanted to redeem Zhou Wu. "Congratulations." Zhou Wu's saber-wielding hand trembled inexplicably. This was something he had dreamed of hearing even before he succeeded. These words had to come from the divine arbiter. At this moment, he finally heard it. As for whether it was from the bottom of his heart, he did not know. It couldn't be. Inwardly, Zhou Wu smiled bitterly. For the sake of transcendence, the divine arbiter clan was part of his list of sacrifices. In fact, he had wanted to keep the Shen clan alive. However, when he really killed to a certain extent, when he wanted to stop, he found that he could no longer stop. The saber in his hand was like a bloodthirsty demon. It corroded his consciousness, causing him to slaughter endlessly, until not a single living thing remained on the central divine mountain. The clansmen of the Shen clan were all lying on the ground. By the time he regained consciousness, it was already too late for regrets. He was vexed. He blamed himself. He was afraid of meeting the divine arbiter and seeing her disappointed eyes. He was afraid she would question him and ask why he had killed her clansmen, her parents, her brothers. That heavy feeling weighed down on his heart until he found out that the divine arbiter had lied to him. Only then did he feel a bit more at ease. He comforted himself by telling himself that the divine arbiter had only herself to blame. Her clansmen were only atoning for her betrayal. It was all the Divine Arbiter's fault. It was all her fault. He comforted himself like this until he received the Divine Arbiter's blessings and looked into her eyes. Only then did he realize that he had been wrong. Ridiculously wrong. He was the one who killed them, and he was the one who caused all the sins. He wanted to apologize, but right now he would not do so. I don't need your congratulations. Divine Arbiter, I have truly underestimated you. It seems that you are not just a useful vase. You are also a scheming woman who knows how to play with power. In order to gain my trust, you did not hesitate to. Hesitate to what? The Divine Arbiter's eyes were red as she stared at Zhou Wu. Hesitate to do anything? Was he supposed to offer up his own body? Zhou Wu could say that to anyone else, but to the Divine Arbiter, you want to say that I did not hesitate to climb into your bed? That I sold my body to gain your trust and climb the ladder of power? Zhou Wu didn't say it, but the Divine Arbiter did. The question on the Divine Arbiter's face and the eagerness in her eyes to say no pierced Zhou Wu's body. He should have said no. That was what he had been thinking, but he hadn't said it. That's right. For you to say something so lowly, it seems you really are a lowly person. It's a good thing I was only playing with you. A lowly person like you. Have you ever loved me? The Divine Arbiter cut him off again. In the face of the Divine Arbiter's questioning, Zhou Wu suddenly couldn't be as resolute as before. The others watched in silence. I'm asking you, do you love me? Divine Arbiter. For the sake of our old friendship, I can't be bothered to quibble with you. Now I want to take their lives. If you leave, I can spare your life. I'm asking you, do you love me? Shouted the Divine Arbiter, tears streaming down her face. Her question seemed to come from the depths of her soul. Everyone couldn't help but be moved. Zhou Wu's lips twitched. For a long time, he didn't know how to respond. Is that important? He didn't dare give a direct answer. He was avoiding the Divine Arbiter's questions. Love? How could he love someone who'd betrayed and deceived him? He didn't love her. How could he possibly say it? But it's important to me. The Divine Arbiter smiled sweetly at Zhou Wu, who didn't dare answer her directly. You don't dare say you don't love me, do you? In truth, I'm in your heart. I'm too important to you, right? Then why can't you say it? Is it so hard to say you don't love me? Said the Divine Arbiter. Zhou Wu, I love you too. I really, really love you. If you still love me, if you still have me in your heart, I'm begging you. Really, please stop. Didn't you tell me you wanted to transcend for the sake of the new era? But now, you're destroying your dream with your own hands. Stop right now and join forces with Yi Zichen and the others to fight the enemies. Don't be so full of yourself, bitch. Suddenly, Zhou Wu's expression darkened, and his eyes flashed with ridicule. Chapter 1806. His voice lingered in the air. Zhou Wu's resolute words caused Su Yan and Xiao Yumei, who were both women, to feel their hearts ache. They understood the Divine Arbiter's thoughts all too well. Zhou Wu's declaration that he didn't love her was a direct attack on her heart. They bit their lips and looked at the Divine Arbiter. Everything was just as they'd expected. The Divine Arbiter's face paled even further. She bit her lip, her eyes trembling. I don't believe you. There's nothing to not believe, Divine Arbiter. In truth, neither of us owes the other anything. You gain power from me, and I vent my desires on you. I really don't know what I did to make you think that way. That I love you is laughable. Enough! Xiao Yumei couldn't bear to watch any longer. She knew full well how insignificant she was in Zhou Wu's eyes. However, she couldn't stand Zhou Wu's harsh words any longer. Who do you think you are? How dare you yell at me? He pointed a finger, and a beam of light shot towards Xiao Yumei. Anyone could tell that there was no way Xiao Yumei could block it. Wu Di and Gu Li clenched their teeth and tried to block it, but before they could, the surrounding space trembled violently. The Divine Arbiter, who'd just been a few hundred meters away, suddenly appeared by Xiao Yumei's side and hugged her tightly. In terms of cultivation, The Divine Arbiter was roughly on par with Xiaoyumei. Xiaoyumei couldn't resist, so she fell into the Divine Arbiter's arms. When he saw this, Zhou Wu's heart clenched. He forcefully lifted his finger, and the beam of light crashed into a distant mountain peak. Boom! There was a massive explosion, and a thick cloud of smoke obscured everyone's vision. When the smoke dissipated, they saw that half the mountain range had been pulverized by the beam of light. "Divine Arbiter, do you want to die?" roared Zhou Wu. "Since you don't love me, what does my death have to do with you? Unless you're lying. You can't bear for me to die, can you?" The Divine Arbiter's eyes flashed with an inexplicable smile. Under her gaze, Zhou Wu felt as if he'd been completely seen through. It was that smile. It was precisely because he'd been addicted to it that he'd believed her lies, that he'd believed everything she said. It was as if she could see through his heart. That was why Zhou Wu had never doubted her for tens of thousands of years. In the end, he was betrayed and deceived by her and ended up in such a lonely state. It had already come to this, she still wanted to bewitch him. Why? He was a god emperor, the only person who had transcended in this era, yet he was being toyed around by a woman. He didn't dare to kill her. Why wouldn't this emperor dare? "If you want to die, I'll fulfill your wish." Zhou Wu grew even more enraged. He extended his hand towards the Divine Arbiter, and a pillar of light, thick as a bowl, shot towards her. No one expected Zhou Wu to really make a move. From Zhou Wu's actions just now, it was clear that the Divine Arbiter was in his heart. This sudden turn of events startled everyone. The Divine Arbiter stared in shock at the beam of light that had locked onto her. She was so shocked that she forgot to use her spiritual power to resist. There was only one thought in her mind. He really made his move. He was going to kill her. All of a sudden, she reached out and touched her stomach. As if she had thought of something, she instantly regained her senses. Under her control, the surrounding space condensed into several spatial buffers in front of her. "Humph. And here I thought you'd gamble more thoroughly. You're scared now that I'm going to kill you, aren't you?" Zhou Wu sneered. When the beam of light touched the Divine Arbiter's spatial barriers, it really was buffered. By the time she broke free of them, the Divine Arbiter's attack was already at a level she could withstand. Perhaps Zhou Wu had held back. If she really wanted to kill the Divine Arbiter, she wouldn't have been able to escape death, no matter how much she resisted. But now, the Divine Arbiter had used a few spatial buffers to negate the beam's power to the point she could withstand it. It was highly likely that Zhou Wu knew her limits and had done this to teach the Divine Arbiter a lesson. However, at that moment, she gathered all of her spiritual power in her abdomen, then spun around. Without any spiritual power to defend herself, the Divine Arbiter only had her fleshly body. So what if she had an Imperial Emperor or a Divine Artifact to defend herself? The Divine Artifact's barrier lasted less than half a breath before Zhou Wu's beam of light pierced through it. Nothing could stop it, and it pierced straight through the Divine Arbiter's chest. The Divine Arbiter coughed up a mouthful of blood. The blood splashed onto the ground, forming a bloody flower. Up in the sky, Zhou Wu froze. The mocking smile vanished from his face as he stared dumbly at the Divine Arbiter. He looked at the bloody hole in her chest, then watched as she slowly fell to the ground. Then, he looked at Su Yan and heard her final words. "I beg you, save my child." "Child? What child?" Zhou Wu suddenly recalled where the Divine Arbiter had gathered her spiritual power. Her abdomen. He'd thought the Divine Arbiter had judged that the beam of light would hit her abdomen, but she'd misjudged. The beam of light had pierced straight through her chest. But the words "child" proved. She'd thought of all of this. How could she possibly have a child? Could it be Divine Arbiter? Xiaoyumei and Su Yan caught it firmly. Especially when she said "child" at the end, both of their hearts trembled. "Lil Yan. I know." Su Yan nodded vigorously, and a jade-green life force surged into the Divine Arbiter's body. "Awaken." Xiao Yumei took out a medicinal pill and fed it to her. Divine Arbiter! At that moment, Zhou Wu hurriedly descended from the sky. Wu Di and Gu Li struggled to keep their battered bodies at bay. To their surprise, Zhou Wu didn't move. He obediently waited outside as Su Yan healed the Divine Arbiter. He'd figured it out. Before he'd left the central Divine Mountain for the Transcendence Tomb, the Divine Arbiter's face had lit up with joy. She'd wanted to tell him something. At the time, she'd said that even if he couldn't transcend, she'd also wanted to tell him some good news. At the time, he'd even scolded the Divine Arbiter for her words. After leaving the tomb, he'd sealed the Divine Mountain and had no further contact with the Divine Arbiter. Even in the end, he hadn't known about the good news. But now, he knew. What she'd really wanted to say was. Xiao Yumei removed her hand from the Divine Arbiter's chest and looked at Su Yan, only to see her shake her head sadly. Xiao Yumei's heart sank. As she watched Su Yan remove her hand, Zhou Wu roared, "What happened to my child? What happened to my child? Heh! So you still remember that it's your child?" Su Yan laughed coldly. "I'm asking you a question," Zhou Wu roared. Su Yan's face was ashen, as if she didn't want to pay him any attention. However, the Divine Arbiter woke up, tugged at her, shook her head, and smiled.